Chapter 1168, including the sealing of the Black Iron Giant. Yunshi has already performed the magnificence of Sky Dance 3 times, which could be considered as a basic understanding of this move. First of all, this move is definitely not meant for human heroes to use. The difficulty of mastering it is probably higher than that of Yunhai's Quadrant Sword and the Sky Flying Sword combined. Without reaching the level of perfect balance between softness and hardness, one cannot even perform the starting move of the magnificence of Sky Dance. Unfortunately, even though Yunshi is still a beginner in both Yunhai's Quadrant Sword and the Sky Flying Sword, he has successfully completed the magnificence of Sky Dance several times. It can only be said that it's a case of planting flowers intentionally, but the flowers don't bloom. Unintentionally, willows grow luxuriant. Clearly, Yunshi hasn't even passed the beginner stage of the Divine Sword skills, yet he has already unleashed the ultimate move of the Battle God genre several times. The first time was when Cassina, the Battle God, took over the body in Water God's world and used it. The second time was the realization after immersing oneself in the River of Time for 1,000 years. The third time was when it was used in Sia's world, where even with only half of the Heaven style, it was a genuine divine technique that sealed the unrivaled Black Iron Giant with just one move. Kindly speaking, the Star Wings, which not only cannot be controlled but also opens unknown gates, is Yunshi's most powerful card, half the move of the magnificence of Sky Dance called Heaven Style. In theory, even if the opponent is a god, if they are completely hit by this move, Heaven Style, they will fall to the ground. The principle of Heaven Style is to use the opponent's energy and world power to seal their divine technique. If combined with the Earth Style that suppresses the opponent with the power of the whole world, even the incomprehensible being like Shea Longness, the Sky Sword would be subdued. It is a true technique against gods and demons, a divine technique developed by Cassina, the Battle God. Gather energy, calm the mind, unlike the hurriedness during the Faceless God incident. This time, Yunshi has enough time to perform the starting move of the magnificence of Sky Dance. As a divine technique that draws on energy to fight, theoretically, the longer the preparation time, the greater the power of this move. During the battle with the Black Iron Giant, if Yunshi is given 1 minute to gather power and prepare for this move, it is likely that past Princess wouldn't even have time to react, and she would have to fly and dance alongside Yunshi in the sky. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed, and the starting pose of Yun, she gives people the feeling of becoming increasingly unfathomable. His raised left hand and lowered right hand are like a bridge connecting heaven and earth. The immense energy that continuously flows through the bridge formed by his body, but Yunshi's expression gradually becomes both crying and laughing. Unable to use the magnificence of Sky Dance. Not having a body like a Black Iron Giant doesn't meet the minimum requirements to unleash the magnificence of Sky Dance. With the Earth Child's enhancement, it can freely absorb the power of the Earth's veins, serving as a bridge to connect the energy of the sky and the Earth. It may not be as powerful as the Faceless God, but meeting the minimum requirements to unleash the magnificence of Sky Dance is enough. The PAFA system also works perfectly, and due to greatly reduced load, it doesn't require sacrificing a large number of beings to activate the starting move of the magnificence of Sky Dance. The problem is the activation principle of the magnificence of Sky Dance. Extract the energy between the sky and the earth, lock onto the target, and draw out their energy from their body to suppress the opponent. This is the essence of the starting move of the magnificence of Sky Dance. So, what would happen if there is no opponent? It's simple. Without an opponent, the magnificence of Sky Dance cannot continue to the next step, meaning it cannot be activated. This move is specifically designed to be used against gods and demons. Without an opponent, there is no principle for activation. In other words, the starting move that Yunshi displayed cannot continue with the combo because there is no enemy as the target. There was a big problem. The amount of spiritual energy he extracted from the heavens and the earth was too much, so much that even the PAFA system couldn't control it. The manipulation difficulty of the Black Iron Giant is much lower than the Faceless God, but the total amount of spiritual energy it can hold cannot compare to the faceless god in the divine vessel. Even considering the limit imposed by the Patha system, the amount of spiritual energy that the faceless god can absorb is more than 10 times that of the black iron giant. It's not unfair that the black iron giant loses to the faceless god, because when Yunshi used the faceless god to unleash the magnificence of Skydance, the power he unleashed was at least more than 10 times that of the black iron giant under the control of Past Princess. Even if that time only lasted for a few short seconds, it was enough to determine the outcome of a battle. Now, Yunshi finds himself in a very awkward situation. He confidently started the magnificence of Skydance, but he realizes that he can't continue. If it was just that, it would have been fine, as he would have just missed a move. But the problem is that Yunshi can't dissipate the spiritual energy he absorbed. This is a manifestation of his lack of proficiency. Yunshi, who has truly mastered the magnificence of Skydance, such as when he is possessed by Cassina the battle god, or the Yunshi who has practiced for thousands of years in the River of Time, would never have this problem. But Yunshi is not. Cassina the battle god possessed, which is a very unlikely event in response to Hydera's hope. The future scene in the long River of Time is a miracle brought about by the power of White Lotus Secret Treasure's evolutionary destiny. Yunshi believed that he had mastered the magnificence of Skydance, but it was just a beautiful illusion. In reality, he is still far from being able to freely use the magnificence of Skydance. Without a divine vessel like the faceless god as a posture, Yunshi fully demonstrated what it means to invite disaster by recklessly using the magnificence of Skydance. More and more spiritual energy from the heavens and earth is being extracted, and due to the excessively fast and intense extraction, a visible giant great whirlpool appeared where the black iron giant is located. The storm has appeared, and the location of the black iron giant is at the center of the storm, showing the outline of a giant great whirlpool. Now, how will it end? Yunshi looked at the escalating celestial phenomenon with a helpless expression. He didn't refuse, but the problem is that he is not skilled enough to control the magnificence of Skydance, so he can't retrieve it at all. Once activated, it cannot be interrupted. This is also one of the characteristics of a divine skill. It's not the kind of third-rate magic that can be interrupted by a small disturbance. Underground cemetery. Between the thrones. Send the fourth layer's guardian to see a kingdom to bring back the black iron giant and the emerald sea dragon beast. Summon the legion of the great graveyard, third layer's guardian. It's time to let the people of this continent know that the king of undead has returned. Chapter 1169, Understood. In the name of Kingdom Shield, I will bring the black iron giant and the emerald sea dragon beast before the king. A faint figure in knight's armor, with a sky-blue crystal rune engraved on its chest, knelt before the king of undead. This time, I will definitely not fail. The former leader of the kingdom's knight order, the number one knight of the land in that era, was unable to protect the king and princess he swore loyalty to, and helplessly watched as the country fell into its final destruction. In order to make up for the mistakes at that time, even if it couldn't be relieved even after death, he ultimately joined as a ghost under the king of undead, serving faithfully. She cherished her comrades more than anyone else and doted on the princess of the former kingdom. Anyone who wanted to harm the princess became her enemy. During the time, the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast occupied the central water vein of the Leviathan Empire. It didn't just sit idle. The Leviathan Empire had no knowledge that the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast had secretly excavated a large amount of resources and sneakily sent them back to the underground cemetery. With the support of these resources, the Rift Space Dragon, which was previously unable to start, as well as the Opera House Phantom, were awakened from their slumber. On the 12th day, since the appearance of the underground cemetery, after the consecutive defeats of the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, the third and fourth layer guardians of the underground cemetery reached the standard to go into action. Do we really have to fight? Compared to the leader of the kingdom's Knight Order and the land's number one knight, Kingdom Shield, the owner of Opera House Phantom, enchanting songstress, didn't like battles very much. Ironically, she was the most terrifying general of the underground cemetery, capable of conquering the world all on her own. The powerful black iron giant, the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, and the Rift Space Dragon were strong in battle. The Emerald Sea Dragon Beast had the most soldiers, with a Sea Serpent Legion of over 10,000. The Phantom of the Opera House, as a war weapon, could control an undead army of up to 1 billion, which was the highest limit among all ancient weapons that can stack their power. In theory, if enough dead were gathered, the Opera House Phantom would become the most terrifying war tool in the entire underground cemetery, as every additional spirit would increase its power. If all intelligent beings in Sia's world were to die and be controlled by the Phantom of the Opera House, then it could reach the status of a god in the field, becoming the world's only strongest being. Of course, this is only a theory. If all intelligent beings in Sia's world were to die, it would mean that the world has entered its doomsday phase, and war would become meaningless. The kingdom's shield, wearing knight armor, still had a steel knight helmet with a narrow gap, fully armed with a knight spear that could be disassembled into 3 parts. The Rift Space Dragon by her side was about 50 meters long, with a sharp triangular head and a sleeker curve than the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, not needing armor for protection. The triangle scales, which trembled with every breath, were perfect in their aerodynamic structure and a living miracle of life. Every line on the dragon's body was evolved for high-speed flying, and its tail had 7 continuous rings. That is an acceleration device called the Electric Ring, which can accelerate the speed of the Rift Space Dragon to an unbelievable level, and theoretically has the potential to break through Sia's world, Heaven's banishment, and enter the starry sky. While alive, the Rift Space Dragon was a highly anticipated dragon species, cultivated in the way of dragons, evolved to impact the stars. Unfortunately, this plan was only halfway executed when the Rift Space Dragon had not yet reached its perfect state, and the war between dragons and humans erupted. In the end, the immature Rift Space Dragon was killed, and its body became a trophy for humans, falling into the hands of the King of Undead, the owner of the underground cemetery. The former #1 knight of the continent, now the guardian of the 4th level of the underground cemetery, unquestionably became the sole core of the Rift Space Dragon. He controlled the ruler of the sky and crushed the Dragon Clan's aerial attacks time and time again. It can be said that if it weren't for the Rift Space Dragon giving humans the advantage in aerial combat, the human army would have completely collapsed during the Dragon Clan's counterattack. Compared to the Dragon Clan, who could fly and engage in high-speed aerial combat, the humans' aerial fighting capability was truly pitiful. The Griffin Legion, which was painstakingly cultivated, was completely depleted by the mid-war. In the later stages, the Rift Space Dragon single-handedly suppressed the Dragon Clan's dominance in aerial combat. By combining the advantages of the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast on land and sea, along with the characteristic of the Opera House Phantom, which grows stronger with more deaths, the Dragon Clan was pushed back into the sea, relinquishing the crown of the continent. In the ancient weapons that participated in the Divine Era War, the Opera House Phantom is undoubtedly the first in terms of the number of kills, while the Black Iron Giant has the highest number of dragon tearings. The Emerald Sea Dragon Beast play an important role in the overall strategy. The Rift Space Dragon is the most maneuverable and intimidating weapon among all ancient weapons against the dragon race. Finally, the reason why the dragon race withdrew from the continent cannot ignore the aerial combat advantage created by the ancient weapon Rift Space Dragon. The opponent that the fearless past princess least wants to fight is precisely the Rift Space Dragon. Because the battle power of the Black Iron Giant is based on standing on the ground, while the position of the Rift Space Dragon is above 10,000 meters in the sky. The battle between the two sides is completely one-sided, with the Black Iron Giant only being beaten, and any attempt to counterattack is simply a foolish dream. There are very few methods that can attack up to 10,000 meters in the sky, including the dragon race. The only creature in Sia's world that can live, fight, and even sleep in this area is the Rift Space Dragon alone. With the activation of all 7 electric rings, no one knows what kind of dragon species the Rift Space Dragon is. If the sky curtain of Sia's world is not very sturdy, it can easily rush into the star world at any time, and it can walk around Sia's world as if taking a walk. In the eyes of others, Sia's world is very big, so big that a person can't traverse it in a lifetime. But in the eyes of the Rift Space Dragon, this world is too small, so small that it cannot fully accelerate and fly. With a high and clear sound, a sky-blue giant dragon flew out of the long-abandoned underground cemetery. Once the greatest hope entrusted by the dragon tribe to break through the starry sky, the Rift Space Dragon became their worst nightmare, soaring once again. The sky-blue giant dragon parted through the waves of clouds, heading towards the Sia Kingdom. Chapter 1170. The Black Iron Giant walked out from the underground cemetery and entered the inner part of the Sia Kingdom. Eventually, out of curiosity, it decided to take a bath before crushing the Sia Kingdom in the nuclear explosion zone. This process gave Yunshi enough time to prepare and activate the faceless god hidden inside the Divine Era Tower. The Rift Space Dragon would never make such a mistake, because the Rift Space Dragon is the fastest weapon in Sia's world, so fast that the entire Sia's world can hardly contain it. Even without activating the 7-layered electric ring at its tail, the Rift Space Dragon can easily exceed 5 times the speed of sound, reaching a maximum speed of 10 times the speed of sound. With such terrifying speed, the Rift Space Dragon single-handedly neutralized the aerial advantage of the entire Dragon Clan in the later stages of the Divine Era and the Dragon Clan War. It even had to engage in a brutal physical fight with the Black Iron Giant on the ground, and ended up being torn apart by several giant dragons. For the extremely rare Dragon Clan, the loss of any member is a huge blow, not to mention losing several in one battle. The truth behind the Dragon Clan's withdrawal from the continent was not that humans completely defeated the Leviathan faction, but rather the Dragon Clan could no longer withstand the insignificant casualty ratio in the eyes of humans. In the eyes of the dragons, the fall of a fellow clan member is a heavy loss, even if it means sacrificing tens of millions of humans. If the fighting continues, the Dragon Clan would win, but lose more than half of their members. The Dragon Clan could not accept such a loss, so they ultimately relinquished their royal authority over the continent, acknowledging the rule of the King of Undead. For the Rift Space Dragon, who effortlessly breaks the sound barrier 5 times over while flying at an altitude of 10,000 meters, the journey taken by the Black Iron Giant in a day and night is just a short distance. With 10 times the speed, the entire continent, and even the entire world of Sia, would just be like a slightly larger garden. If the 7-layer electric ring is activated, it would not be impossible to journey through the stars, and at least going to the moon would be a very simple task. However, when the Rift Space Dragon was flying at a distance that was only a tiny bit away from Sia's capital, Kingdom Shield noticed that the surrounding scenery had become strange. Storm. Kingdom Shield took off his helmet, revealing his flowing golden hair, and looked around with some confusion at the unusual clouds. Ordinary clouds, when seen from the ground, look soft like cotton, but when you fly into this gathering, you realize it's only thick mist. The clouds and mist seen by humans on mountains are actually no different from the clouds in the sky. But now, this cloud formation is different. With a certain location as the center, the entire sky is covered by a huge funnel-shaped cloud layer that not even the speed of the Rift Space Dragon can avoid. The thick layers of clouds, like being stirred crazily by a mixer, show a wild and uncontrollable trend. At the bottom of the funnel-shaped cloud layer, there seems to be an expanding vortex, with the shadows of tornadoes appearing around it, and it's a supersized tornado that has never appeared in this country before. Kingdom Shield, the owner of the Rift Space Dragon, and once a cartographer who mapped the entire Sia's world from tens of thousands of meters high, has never encountered such a strange and abnormal cloud phenomenon. Even in stormy weather with dark clouds, once you ascend to the height where the Rift Space Dragon is, the clouds become thinner, and the thunder and lightning that terrify ordinary people only serve as energy for the Rift Space Dragon, which has the electric ring component. Rift Space Dragon was a natural ruler of the sky, so fast that even other giant dragons couldn't catch up. But it was this very Rift Space Dragon that felt a strange danger when it observed the abnormal funnel-shaped clouds ahead, for some unknown reason, which also served as the kingdom's shield. Is there danger? How can there be? What could possibly catch up to your speed at this position? Whether it's a natural phenomenon or something mysterious, nothing can catch up to us. We are the fastest duo. Kingdom Shield patted the restless Rift Space Dragon beneath him, for some inexplicable reason, and decided to break through the eerie funnel-shaped clouds head-on. To hesitate, to be bound and unable to act, and to ultimately miss the last chance to save the country, was the greatest sorrow for the once great knights of the land. Just as War Dancer, who had been drowned alive in the sea, yearned for the freedom to move limitlessly in the water, Kingdom's Shield yearned for the quickest speed, to be able to arrive at the most crucial moments and protect the most important thing, its power. She could become the sole core of Rift Space Dragon because of this dedication. As long as I fly fast enough, I can catch up with everything, change everything, and no one can stop me. Faced with strange clouds that had never appeared before, she eagerly tried to save the lost princess. War Dancer, and made a wrong decision. Electric Ring, activate. She didn't underestimate this strange cloud that she had never encountered before and directly activated Rift Space Dragon's most powerful bloodline talent. The galloping lightning began to shine from the first of the 7 rings at the tail of the Rift Space Dragon. Higher, faster. Instead of directly destroying what was blocking her, the Rift Space Dragon rushed towards the sky with a speed that even people couldn't react to, flying over from a position that the clouds couldn't reach. The only trace left in the clouds was a faint lightning. From seeing the clouds to making this judgment, it took less than 10 seconds. Flying freely and without limitations is the inherent nature of the Rift Space Dragon, representing infinite freedom. This flight took them straight up to the top of the sky, close to the ceiling of Sia's world. Beyond that is an invisible barrier that exists and keeps all the intelligent beings of Sia's world confined to the ground. The Rift Space Dragon is a secret weapon created by the dragon tribe to break through this confinement. In a pale blue flash of lightning, the silhouette of the Rift Space Dragon disappeared at the top of the holy clouds, seeming unaffected by this phenomenon. However, this is just a wonderful illusion. The formation of holy clouds is merely a natural phenomenon caused unintentionally by someone's persistence. Below this cloud layer, the Rift Space Dragon hides something that it has never encountered in its entire life. As the Rift Space Dragon prepares to charge through this cloud layer using its electric ring, it becomes so prominent in someone's unconscious focus, like an elephant confidently striding across the plains. So, how do you fit an elephant into a wardrobe? It's very easy. Just grab the elephant and push it in with force. Chapter 1171. In a valley in the wild wilderness of Sia Kingdom. Yunshi was sweating profusely as he watched the increasing concentration of natural energy around him. Even though it was supposed to be a period of magic tide decline, the magical energy in this valley had already exceeded normal levels by more than 50 times. It was a holy place that could even establish the highest level mage towers during the Divine Era. Magical energy, spiritual energy, natural energy are all different expressions of the world's laws. It's just that in accordance with the customs of Endless God's domain, they are called by different names. It's similar to Dragon Roar Wave of the Dragon Clan, which is the manifestation of their respective essences. The natural energy gathered by Yun, she using the magnificence of Sky Dance, when described in Sia's world, is the purest form of magical energy and can be directly absorbed by human bodies. With the support of the Earth's pulse and the massive 50-meter body of the Black Iron Giant, the natural energy gathered by Yun, she had already reached a level that could affect celestial phenomena. At first, it was just a gentle breeze, accompanied by the sound of a certain tide. All the small animals around started running towards the Black Iron Giant, rubbing against its magic tide. Although it was a terrifying giant, in the eyes of these small animals, the Black Iron Giant was not scary at all. It was just a moving giant like the towering mountains. And the pure magical energy gathered around him was something that all animals liked. Quickly, Any intelligent creature from the surrounding mountains gathered around the black iron giant, who unleashed the magical power of the sky dance, rubbing against its magic. But soon, these small creatures realized that there was an overwhelming amount of magic gathering around them. Considering their bodies, except for a few creatures with atavistic characteristics, other animals couldn't tolerate such concentration of magic. One by one, they drunkenly collapsed near the black iron giant. Magic intoxication, a condition that no longer existed on the continent, but was only occasionally seen when ordinary people entered highly magical environments like the Divine Era's mage towers. It was a rare symptom that only manifested in individuals with a high sensitivity to magic. Developing this condition meant having a high affinity for both your body and magic. In the Divine Era, such people were sought after by mages and were almost guaranteed to become advanced wizards in the future. The phenomenon of magic concentration around Yuan Shi, which was tens of times higher than normal and indiscriminate towards large groups, gave even the least talented creatures the ability to interact with magic. This was not an innate trait, but a species created by Yuan Shi's use of the magnificence of sky dance, a miraculous phenomenon in Sia's world. With this ability, even during the period of declining magical tides, Yuan Shi could easily create a large group of mages. The period of magic tide decline in Sia's world was essentially the fusion of magic with the world becoming more stable, caused by the absorption during the Leviathan's breathing phenomenon. According to Poincar's improved theory, the magic in Sia's world neither increased nor decreased. It was originally abundant between the heavens and the earth, easily absorbed by people. The used magic returned to the earth, specifically inside the legendary Leviathan wreckage. He even speculated that there might be a large amount of things underground on the continent that could be directly used as energy. As long as suitable locations are found and deep enough wells are dug, this substance can be excavated from the earth, refined, and transformed into the foundational energy source for a new generation of scientific revolution. Yuan Shi took it a step further. He didn't need to dig any wells or collect any perfect gems. With just the starting move of the magnificence of sky dance, he could change the physical condition of the world's creatures and conjure up a concentration of magic that didn't exist in the period of magic tide decline, the Divine Era. In this aspect, it shares similarities with the Divine Era Tower of Sia Kingdom. However, what Yuan Shi can achieve goes beyond the fixed concentration of magic in the Divine Era Tower. The magical sanctuary he created is even more powerful than the Divine Era. It can even actively infect ordinary animals, turning them into magical creatures with an affinity for magic. One can only imagine the small animals, intoxicated by magic, waking up after this night and discovering that they suddenly have the ability to shoot fireballs or ice arrows. The few already powerful magical creatures also awaken the true ancestral bloodline power. For this world, it is a sign, a very unusual sign, but Yuan Shi has no idea what it means. The current Yuan Shi only knows one thing. If he doesn't release the building power of the magnificence of sky dance, he will explode soon. The gathered essence of the world around him is enough to seal 3 black iron giants, but Yuan Shi cannot find a suitable target to attack. Not every cat and dog deserves to be sealed by the magnificence of sky dance. As a divine skill of the battle god genre, this move can only target beings with a high level of existence. The magnificence of sky dance doesn't even bother with targets weaker than Yuan Shi. They won't even react. To make the magnificence of sky dance strike, the target must at least be on the same level as the black iron giants, or even higher. Yuan Shi is getting anxious and sweating, but he can't sense any suitable target in the desolate wilderness to activate the magnificence of sky dance. Now, it's all over. The immense essence of the world has formed a tangible magic tide, just like the moment when the Divine Era began and the 12 golden ancient people were born. The whole world is releasing magical power, symbolizing the rules of the world's origin. The clouds in the sky became crazier as this magical wave was born, as if there was an invisible giant hand playing with the strings of the world, making the sky go completely mad. Layers of clouds gathered from all directions, forming a visible, gigantic funnel. The immense energy of the heavens and earth continuously gathered at the spot where Yunshi was. The wind started blowing. Just as Yunshi was about to lose his composure, thinking that he was going to explode this time, a shadow, as fast as lightning, flashed through the enormous hole-shaped cloud layer. In that moment, not even a tenth of a second passed, and even if someone raised their head, they couldn't be sure what happened in the tens of thousands of meters high in the sky. But for Yunshi, this was a lifesaver. There was no need for any preparation time, because Yunshi had already prepared for so long, almost ready to explode in place, triggering a real magical wave. The magnificence of sky dance begin. Chapter 1172 Rift Space Dragon is a creature that loves freedom, and this has been instilled in its soul since the moment it was born. It flies freely in the sky. No one can make Rift Space Dragon stop. As a new breed of dragons with great hopes, it carries the expectations of everyone. It doesn't need to rest on the ground. Its unique body structure allows it to fly in the sky, anytime and anywhere. Even when sleeping, it can hover thousands of meters above the ground. When Rift Space Dragon activates its electric ring at the tail and accelerates, gravity almost doesn't affect it. Humans can't perceive its high-speed flying. They can only see the traces it leaves behind after tearing through the clouds. And what Rift Space Dragon likes most is accelerating in a straight line. When Rift Space Dragon activates its electric ring ability, under the command of the Kingdom Shield, its entire body transforms into a virtual figure that almost merges with the sky as it pushes through all the clouds towards the center of Sia Kingdom. However, this speed only lasted for less than 3 seconds before encountering unimaginable obstacles. From the Earth, a terribly strong attraction pulled not only the high-speed flying Rift Space Dragon, but also the surrounding clouds. That kind of thing is like a whirlpool in the ocean. It sucks everything around it and then devours it. The huge cloud layers are compressed forcefully. There are countless lightning bursts between the layers of clouds. The enormous body of the Rift Space Dragon first slows down, then starts to flip over like a paper airplane caught in a storm, completely losing balance. What is that? Kingdom Shield looked in shock at the enormous magical vortex below. Only when one is truly caught in this vortex can they realize the immense power of magic it holds. Even in the Divine Era, aside from the battlefield with the dragons, there would never be such terrifying magical phenomena anywhere else. And this kind of phenomenon often represents only one thing: the forbidden spell, a magical incantation symbolizing the pinnacle of human wisdom. Humans' most advanced wizards, with the power of the constellation god's weapons, would use it at the cost of burning their own lives to perform the ultimate lethal move. Among the dragons that fell in battle against humans, apart from being killed by the weapons from the underground cemetery, most deaths were caused by being struck down by the forbidden spell after exhausting their strength. In order to defeat the dragons, humans developed a forbidden spell specifically for them, which required sacrificing their finest wizards. This spell, called the Great Destruction Sphere, concentrated the power of taboos to lock onto the target. Although it has an extremely slow casting speed and is not fast in terms of attack speed, and it has weaknesses such as having to wait until the opponent's mobility is lost and having to directly endure the attack, the Great Destruction Sphere is undoubtedly the pinnacle of dragon-specific forbidden spells in the Divine Era of magic. The dragon that was hit by the big destructive ball will collapse internally and die with bleeding from its 7 orifices. However, the Kingdom Shield can be sure that this is not a big destructive ball, and it is not any kind of forbidden curse recorded in the Divine Era. Even the Rift Space Dragon cannot break free from the power that seems to suck everything in, which doesn't exist in any records of the Divine Era. Second shocking thunder. In the midst of the spinning world, the Kingdom Shield once again commanded the Rift Space Dragon, and the second electric ring on its tail began to light up. As a hidden weapon of the dragon race, the Rift Space Dragon has many secrets. Once all 7 electric rings are fully activated, It can instantly soar out of the sky and wander in the endless starry sky. The problem is that this speed cannot be reached in the atmosphere of Sia's world, because once all the electric rings are activated, the Rift Space Dragon will hit the boundary of the world in less than a second. For the Rift Space Dragon with the 7 electric rings, this world is just too small that it cannot even reach its top speed, otherwise it will definitely crash into the sky. Each activated electric ring can increase the speed of the Rift Space Dragon by 1 level. Just now, in order to rush through this strange cloud layer, the Rift Space Dragon had already activated the first electric ring, accelerating its speed to more than 10 times the speed of sound, which would be enough to destroy the countries of humans if it happened on the ground just by running. After the second electric ring is activated, the Rift Space Dragon is no longer bound by gravity. If it weren't for the heavens banishment in Sia's world, it could fly out of the atmosphere and dance among the stars. The breathing system of the Rift Space Dragon is unique. It doesn't need air at all, but instead absorbs tiny particles around it to exchange energy. It is a special dragon species specifically created for the starry sky. But now, the Rift Space Dragon is experiencing a similar suffocating pain from the kingdom's shield. Despite the howling storm and the flowing lightning all around, for the Rift Space Dragon, this environment is even more terrifying than a vacuum. All the magic and energy particles around are flowing back towards a certain spot on the ground, and even the Rift Space Dragon, with the second electric ring activated, cannot escape this terrible gravitational force. The terrifying Great Whirlpool is sucking everything from the sky, leaving a huge, visible mark on the ground. Third, Kingdom's shield gritted his teeth, about to activate the third electric ring, which can hardly be used within the atmosphere by the Rift Space Dragon. Once activated, the Rift Space Dragon's speed will undergo a dramatic change. The first and second electric rings are designed for use within the atmosphere, but starting from the third electric ring, they are prepared as a deadly weapon for the vastness of the starry sky. Lock on. On the ground, Yunshi looked at the target still struggling, not giving up hope, and extended his hand. The splendor of sky dance released. The enormous white energy flow looked like a huge net in the sky, completely trapping the unidentified weapon flying from the direction of the underground cemetery. Without a doubt, this is not the civilization style of Sia's world. Through past princesses bragging, he even determined which ancient weapon it was. The 4th level guardian of the underground cemetery, the supreme sky ruler with the highest mobility among all ancient weapons in the underground cemetery, Rift Space Dragon. If the magic vortex just now presented a terrifying natural phenomenon, then the formal release of the splendor of sky dance is an inescapable net. The enormous energy wove a cage that no prey could avoid, instantly catching the Rift Space Dragon, which was preparing to activate the third electric ring. The giant made of black iron, in an unscientific manner, leaped into the air and landed above the Rift Space Dragon. The black iron giant, leaving the ground, instantly lost the advantage of continuously gaining power from the Earth's veins. However, it was no longer necessary, because the battle god genre's powerful skill, the magnificence of sky dance, had already been used. The black iron giant's hands firmly held onto the struggling Rift Space Dragon and began to absorb its energy. Fly! Even in such a critical moment, Kingdom's shield remained calm and made the most appropriate judgment. Third electric ring, activate. Whoosh! The Rift Space Dragon swung its tail and dragged the 50-meter black iron giant, racing through the sky in a frenzy. The scenery on the ground, mountains, oceans, islands, unfolded like a high-speed painting in front of Yunshi, with the third electric ring activated and accompanied by the presence of a black iron giant. Sia's world, shaped like an elongated oval, became a blur as the Rift Space Dragon, carrying the black iron giant, flew towards the edge of the horizon at a speed that Yunshi had never experienced in his lifetime. 15 seconds passed, and the continent where Sia Kingdom and Leviathan Empire were located became a thing of the past. 30 seconds passed, and the largest ocean in Sia's world was also crossed. In 1 minute, 2 ancient weapons entwined together made a round around Sia's world. During this process, the Rift Space Dragon kept changing its positions. The Cobra tumbled, vertically flipped, spiraled, and dashed in a 360-degree motion. The third electric ring proved itself capable of breaking through the atmosphere and disregarding gravity. Even with a giant covered in heavy armor hanging onto it, it still managed to circle Sia's world within a minute. However, no matter how it flew or changed positions, it couldn't escape the absorption of the magnificence of Sky Dance. Harnessing the power of the opponent to suppress them, this is a formidable technique that becomes stronger when faced with strength. The terrifying speed of the Rift Space Dragon only drained more of its energy. It circled Sia's world for a total of 30 laps, maintaining the acceleration of the third electric ring for over 30 minutes. Finally, the Rift Space Dragon could no longer fly. On the boundless blue sea, a blue Rift Space Dragon and the black Iron Giant holding onto it tumbled and fell from the sky. Boom! The two enormous creatures fell into the sea, creating a massive splash that rose over a kilometer high. Waves upon waves spread out from where they fell, forming an overwhelming flood. In the deep sea, 3,000 meters below the surface, the black Iron Giant held down the struggling Rift Space Dragon. Now the Rift Space Dragon could no longer fly. However, to Yunshi's surprise, the Rift Space Dragon, which had fallen into the water, showed no signs of discomfort. Its tail's electric ring even emitted a more dazzling light than in the sky. The battle was far from over. The magnificence of Sky Dance unleashed by the black Iron Giant's body was not enough to completely suppress the rampaging Rift Space Dragon. The Rift Space Dragon, back in the water, revealed another side unknown to anyone. Its body began to shrink, adapting to the underwater environment. The electric ring on its back became even more active, replenishing the energy it had lost. What? Was it originally a creature living in the sea? Yunshi looked surprised as he watched its tail swaying, and the Rift Space Dragon unleashed its electric ring in the sea again. It had been completely suppressed by the magnificence of Sky Dance, but now it unexpectedly burst forth with renewed energy. The arena changed. The battle began again. Even though it was in the underwater, where the resistance was many times greater than in the air, the Rift Space Dragon demonstrated a more terrifying destructive power than in the sky. Accelerating underwater beyond the speed of sound is different from exceeding the speed of sound in the sky. With the underwater resistance being 800 times greater than in the air, being able to exceed the speed of sound in the water meant that the Rift Space Dragon could unleash a force 800 times greater than supersonic speed in the air. Wherever it passed, the seawater completely evaporated. Even the rocky cliffs were cut apart. Occasionally, islands appearing in its path were instantly shattered into pieces with no trace left behind. Although there was no volcanic eruption under the sea, a huge tsunami appeared, and the water in this tsunami was completely boiling. The previously calm sea surface was like a boiling pot of oil. Countless marine creatures turned into corpses floating on the surface. Then they were swept up by the giant waves, and a faint aroma of grilled seafood permeated the air. The place where the Rift Space Dragon passed by had its underwater sand stirred up, creating a triangular murky water area. When seen from the sky, it looked as if someone was doodling on a blue canvas with outstanding colors. A large group of islands located in the middle of the sea were completely shattered by the Rift Space Dragon from the ocean floor. Following that, massive tsunamis rushed through, causing these islands to vanish completely from Sia's world map. It's so hot. As the Rift Space Dragon continued to go deeper into the sea, Yunshi could feel the difference between this ancient weapon and the others more than anyone else. This species didn't seem like something that would exist in Sia's world. Its ability to accelerate endlessly, whether in the sky or in the sea, was like a creature designed to roam the stars. At this moment, with only 3 of the electric rings on its tail activated, it was already causing tremendous chaos in the depths of the ocean. It was unstoppable and even resulted in plate shifts and several underwater volcanoes erupting. Compared to the black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, the destructive power caused by the Rift Space Dragon was even more apparent. whether in the sky or the sea. It possessed a devastating, destructive force. The shockwaves caused by its high-speed movement in the underwater could even reach the Earth's crust, triggering earthquakes with a magnitude of over 8 levels. This level of destructive power was definitely not on the same level as the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast. Moreover, this was only the Rift Space Dragon with 3 electric rings activated. According to the data observed by Yunshi, there were still 4 electric rings on its tail that hadn't been activated. If all 7 electric rings were activated, what level of speed would it reach? Maybe the entire world of Sia can be flown through in a blink of an eye. This speed doesn't seem like something that species living in the atmosphere could evolve, at least among all the creatures that Yunshi has encountered. Only the 2 fantasy species he encountered at Hydra the Water God had this kind of speed. Ouroboros, Phoenix. That is a legendary creature that can freely move and travel in the endless god's domain without needing a star bridge, a mythical species. The Rift Space Dragon also possesses such potential. Every scale and bone in its body has evolved for the purpose of accelerating and adapting to super high speeds. It is simply a perfect and flawless high-speed weapon. However, the opponent it encountered possessed divine techniques that even gods and demons could suppress. No matter how fast it flies, or how powerful its acceleration is, when Yunshi catches it, its fate is already sealed. Boom! Exhausted, Rift Space Dragon crashed into the largest obstacle in Sia's world, the ice and snow continent in the south, causing a crack over 10 kilometers long and finally coming to a stop. Chapter 1173 Sia's World, a frozen land at the edge of the world. The icy land was torn open, and countless centuries of silence in the glaciers were broken by the terrifying heat, melting and evaporating, revealing a black ground. As Rift Space Dragon continued to resist and struggle. Even though the electric ring on its tail had dimmed, it didn't give up the fight. However, everything was already too late. Yunshi controlled the Black Iron Giant, locking onto the vital points of Rift Space Dragon. Visible sparks of energy were continuously extracted from Rift Space Dragon's body, forming part of the seal. The stronger the opponent, the more powerful the magnificence of Sky Dance becomes. If Rift Space Dragon wasn't so formidable, the magnificence of Sky Dance wouldn't even have been unleashed. At this moment, the Sky Dance's magnificence is in full swing, representing the qualification of the Rift Space Dragon being sealed by the Sky Dance. Buzz! 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 3 electric rings burst with their final electric lights, this time not for acceleration, but for killing. The Black Iron Giant stood stably on the ground, absorbing the power of the Earth vein from the ice and snow continent at the world's end through its feet. Compared to the continent where humans live, the ice and snow continent, formed naturally due to extreme low temperatures, has a purer power of the Earth vein. It can be said that it is the place in this world that is closest to the environment of the divine era. As an Earth child, the Black Iron Giant stepped on this land. Even in the face of a lightning storm, it remained fearless. Boom! 9 consecutive thunder pillars descended from the sky. This was the Rift Space Dragon's final counterattack. The Black Iron Giant transformed into a bridge connecting heaven and earth, directly enduring the Rift Space Dragon's 9 thunder strikes, and then pressed the body of the Rift Space Dragon into a tens of kilometers long ice and snow ravine, with a huge pillar of spiritual light soaring into the sky. Sealing complete. No matter how hard the Rift Space Dragon struggled from the sky to the sea, even causing catastrophic disasters, in the face of the battle god genre's powerful technique, the magnificence of Sky Dance, that even gods and demons couldn't escape from, it still had to obediently settle down in the end. In fact, being able to persist until now under the magnificence of Sky Dance was already an incredible achievement, even for Yunshi. When he sealed the Black Iron Giant with the Faceless God, it only took him a minute. When using the Black Iron Giant as the container, the charging time was more than 10 times longer than the first time, so the completion of this magnificence of Sky Dance far exceeded that of sealing the Black Iron Giant. Even though it was a strengthened version of the ultimate move, This time, Rift Space Dragon resisted for over half an hour before finally being defeated due to the excessive number of sealed nodes within its body. Judging from the performance of the two ancient weapons, the potential of the Rift Space Dragon surpasses the Black Iron Giant not by a small margin, but by a whole level of difference. According to Yunshi's calculations, even if you combine the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, they probably wouldn't be a match for the Sky Dominator, Rift Space Dragon. As long as the Rift Space Dragon activates the electric rings on its three tails, it can throw them so far that not even their shadows can be seen. If it hadn't been for Sia's world's special Heaven's Banishment just now, the Rift Space Dragon might have already flown out of the atmosphere. Please kill me. The guardian of the fourth level of the underground cemetery, once the number one knight in the land, emerged from the immobile body of the Rift Space Dragon, looking at the victorious Black Iron Giant with cold eyes. She was very familiar with the power of the Black Iron Giant. Being able to control it meant that someone had taken control of the soul core of the Black Iron Giant. For the already deceased underground cemetery guardian, this was something even more unacceptable than death, especially for the proud kingdom's shield, once the number one knight in the land. She admitted her failure this time and had the determination to die for her cause. Captain, War Dancer appeared on the shoulder of the Black Iron Giant, looking at the former number one knight of the land, now the kingdom's shield, with complicated eyes. Oh, Big Sister Knight also lost. I don't want it to be like this. Past Princess cried like a little kitten. The number one knight in the land, the commander of the palace knights guarding the country, the guardian of the fourth level of the underground cemetery. She had always been the idol she admired. She had everything she didn't have: a healthy body, strong strength, absolute confidence. Even in the disaster that destroyed the kingdom, she kept fighting until the end, without any retreat. She was a model knight, the unbeatable hero in the heart of the past princess. Now, she fell into a trap set by that shameless and lecherous silver dragon, who used her Black Iron Giant to launch a surprise attack while she was unprepared. It's all that shameless and lecherous silver dragon's fault. Without him, the world would have been unified by Dad a long time ago. The angrier past princess became, the more she ran back to the core of her Black Iron Giant, which had been remodeled. I punch, the girl's flower fist. I kick, the girl's fancy leg. I bite, the girl's bite. Of course, no harm done. Let's just say it made Yunshi a little embarrassed and excited because he always sees that white little underwear wiggling in front of him. This way, three were defeated. Riding the Black Iron Giant, Yunshi walked up to the completely sealed Rift Space Dragon, and suddenly he froze. He looked around, and big drops of sweat fell from his forehead. Where is this place? Just now, he was fully focused on sealing the Rift Space Dragon and completely forgot about everything else. Now, Yunshi realizes that he seems to be in a slightly distant place, possibly brought by the Rift Space Dragon. Is this the north? Seeing the snowy landscape, Yunshi remembers the world map he saw in the library of the Divine Era Tower. No, it's the south, the southernmost part of the world with icy levels. You big, silly dragon, said the princess, standing with her hands on her hips, looking at Yunshi with disdain. Yunshi looked up at the incredibly bright sky. No wonder the air was so fresh and the earth energy so pure. There was no sign of human presence around. Are you a dragon? Kingdom Shield frowned at Yunshi, who was clearly around 14 years old. She was the first knight of the Divine Era and had personally encountered people from the dragon race. Unlike War Dancer and Past Princess, who only fought dragons on the battlefield later, she was still alive when humans had not yet officially started a war with dragons. As the first knight of the continent at that time, she had been to the dragon settlement more than once and had even met a few prominent dragons. However, this human in front of her looked completely different from the dragons she had seen. As the most powerful being in Sia's world, the leader of the Leviathan faction, dragons were the proudest race in the entire Sia's world. Their main characteristic was their aversion to strangers. Apart from the golden ancient people, who symbolized the power of Sia in the human race, other humans were seen as insignificant insects in their eyes. Chapter 1175, I don't know anything. Such an ignorant child. There won't be any mistakes. This child was hatched from that tall tower. In the history of Sia's world, it was the fourth baby dragon born from the Tower of Life. However, if he is a baby dragon, he is too powerful. Could this be some kind of mutant dragon that has never been born in the dragon clan? Just like the Rift Space Dragon, it doesn't belong to the normal dragon lineage. It is a secret weapon specifically designed to impact the stars. The kingdom's shield looked at Yuan-Shi with shocked eyes and deduced more truths. However, if these truths were to be acknowledged, the future of the Silver Dragon would be too terrifying. The Rift Space Dragon is a weapon that can traverse the entire Sia's world in 1 second, if all 7 electric rings are activated. It is a highly maneuverable war tool that can dance among the seeds of the stars. And the Silver Dragon, before their eyes, has even greater potential than the Rift Space Dragon. If that's the case, Silver Dragon, let's form an alliance with us. This world is too small for you and our king. Our journey is among the stars and seas, not in this tiny world. There was no sign of defeat or despair on the kingdom's shield. No matter when, she is the perfect first knight of the great land, the military commander of the underground cemetery. She may be defeated, but she will never bow her head. Even if she fought until the last moment and couldn't see any hope, she would not give up. Because if she gives up, everything will truly come to an end. It was her strong determination that allowed her to control the most powerful airborne weapon in the underground cemetery, the Rift Space Dragon, and unleash its true strength. Yuan-Shi looked at the kingdom's shield in front of him and felt a completely different sense of pressure and confidence compared to past princess and war dancer. She was different from them, perhaps because she was a knight. Her posture was always incredibly upright, and her voice was clear and crisp, giving others a feeling of wanting to believe in her involuntarily. As the first knight of the Divine Era Continent and the captain of the kingdom's guardian knights, Yuan-Shi knew her identity. But only after personally interacting with her did he understand that anyone who could become the first knight of the Divine Era Continent must have exceptional qualities. The kingdom's shield possessed the strong will to protect everything and a confidence that resonated with others. Alliance is possible, but I need the 12 constellation gods' weapons. At the same time, we must maintain the independent status of the Sia kingdom. Yuan-Shi thought for a moment, realizing that he didn't really have an irreconcilable enmity with the king of undead in the underground cemetery. The biggest conflict between him and the rightful ruler of this continent was about the ownership of the 12 constellation gods' weapons. Most of the known constellation gods' weapons were said to be stored in the king of undead's underground cemetery, and his main task in this trial of the stars was to collect these weapons. At the same time, as a prince of Sia Kingdom, he also had the responsibility to protect it. As for the other countries on the continent, he didn't know a single one. These 2 conditions, huh? With what you've said, you have the qualification. Kingdom Shield looked at Yuan-Shi in front of him and nodded. If it's the Yuan-Shi who hasn't shown his power yet, wanting to obtain the legendary constellation gods' weapons from the underground cemetery and keep the Sia Kingdom independent is nothing but a dream. But now, Yuan-Shi has defeated 3 guardians of the underground cemetery in a row, and may even have gained control over the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast. So now he is qualified to make his own demands. Constellation gods' weapons have great significance for humans, and also have special meaning for the king of undead in the underground cemetery. That is the legacy left behind by the king of undead's former benefactor, lover, and friend. But if it is for the dream of reaching for the stars and the sea, these legacies should be brought out. After all, for the king of undead, these legacies are not needed for battle, but are only kept as mementos. I represent the underground cemetery and can grant your request. Compared to the Black Iron Giant responsible for charging in a battle, the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast providing logistical support, and the Rift Space Dragon Dominator who controls all the military force of the underground cemetery from a height of 10,000 meters. Kingdom Shield has such privileges. As the first knight of the continent, she has no weaknesses, whether it is in character or strategy. If you insist on pointing out a weakness, it is that she cherishes the things she protects too much, even willing to sacrifice her own life without hesitation. In the past, what she protected was her country, the king, and the princess. Now, what she protects is the underground cemetery, the guardians, and the future of this world. As for things like royal authority, after experiencing the Divine Era War, she no longer cares about it, as much as the owner of the underground cemetery. The reason why Underground Cemetery wanted to conquer the world was simply to obtain more resources and manpower. If the resistance encountered during this process exceeds the resources and manpower needed for conquest, then it is not worth it. War is merely the final form of conflict, and if there are other ways to solve problems, then war is the worst choice. However, there are only 8 constellation gods' weapons stored in the underground cemetery. There were 3 more originally held by the descendants of the Golden Ancient People, but they were eventually lost. The last piece seems to have disappeared with the disappearance of that Golden Ancient People. Kingdom Shield honestly told Yuan Shi about the number of Constellation Gods' weapons stored in the underground cemetery and the whereabouts of the other 12 Constellation Gods' weapons. This is consistent with the information Yuan Shi received from Ein and Adley. Most of the Constellation Gods' weapons disappeared with the end of the war with the dragon race, and most of them ended up in the underground cemetery. The remaining few fell into the ocean during the later stages of the war between humans and the Leviathan faction, and there is no news about them. Ein asked the Mermaid Princess from the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order about the news of the lost Constellation Gods' weapons in the ocean. The answer she received was that those Constellation Gods' weapons seem to have been taken away by some ancient races located in the deep sea, and there has been no news since then. Those ancient races, like the dragons that disappeared when the period of magic tide decline officially arrived, have not been seen by anyone. At this point, the clue was temporarily lost. Please release half of the seal on the Rift Space Dragon, and I will return to the underground cemetery to bring you the Constellation Gods' weapons you need. At the same time, the king will hold the first continental conference since the Divine Era, and all countries on the continent will be invited to attend. The necessary invitations have already been sent out. Chapter 1176, Invitations. Have you all been ready for a long time? Yuan Shi curiously looked at the person who claimed to be the highest military leader of the underground cemetery, Kingdom Shield. If what past princess said is correct, the guardians of the 5th and 6th levels have yet to be completed, and as the guardian of the 4th level of the underground cemetery, she is indeed everyone's leader. The identity of being the #1 knight in the continent during his lifetime, as well as his strategic vision, also makes him unparalleled in the entire underground cemetery. Yes, it is an invitation that cannot be refused. Kingdom Shield shrugged and told Yuan Shi that this invitation is one that no country can reject, because it is an invitation sent by the Opera House Phantom. Whoa, gaga gaga. The boundless and unimaginable vast army is advancing. There are more soldiers than the entire Leviathan Empire's permanent army combined. The level is a true Divine Era level. Even in the later stages of the Divine Era, there has never been such a large army gathered together. Invading with a large army is not as simple as just assembling troops. It requires more than 10 times the logistical support in manpower and resources for a legion of over 10,000 to march. Having a legion of over 1 million means that the rear requires logistical support from 10 million humans, which is a huge burden for any country as it involves giving up production. In history, there have been a few legions mobilized by humans claiming to have 1 million soldiers. But the truth is, boasting aside, having 50,000 troops available for combat is already very impressive. However, the army advancing on the Leviathan Empire's territory at this moment is a true million-strong legion, because they don't need logistical support. They don't need food. They don't need water. The merchant didn't follow the group. They moved forward silently, and the vast white landscape gave them chills. With bones in a dreadful color and cold souls, this is a million-strong army that only exists in mythological stories, composed of the deceased. The main force of the underground cemetery's army, led by the Opera House Phantom, the Undead Army, emerged from their eternal rest after the end of the Divine Era and the war with the dragons, proclaiming the return of the King of Undead to the entire world. The million-strong undead army is mostly made up of human skeletons, with about one-fifth consisting of corpses belonging to the Leviathan faction creatures. Among them, there are over 100 elite Death Knights, around 60 liches serving as spellcasters, and 17 skeletal dragons flying above the undead army. This is not the entirety of the forces of the underground cemetery, nor is it the maximum the Opera House Phantom can command. It is probably only about one-fifth of the forces from the Divine Era War, with many powerful undead who have been modified not yet dispatched. Despite this, the intimidating power of this army has been enough to cause panic even in the Leviathan Empire. The knights, who possess strong wills, have chosen to retreat and defend for the first time, as no one dares to engage in active combat. Even the mighty magic armor can only take a step back when facing this million-strong army. If it's just the regular skeleton soldiers, it's not too bad, but this undead army also has powerful troops like Death Knights, liches, and skeletal dragons. In the initial battle, the magic armor once took the initiative and defeated over 1,000 skeleton soldiers. But under the liches' reanimation magic, these skeleton soldiers, turned into bone scraps, quickly stood up again. As for the few magic armors that attacked, their fate was being caught by skeletal dragons descending from the sky and becoming trophies of the underground cemetery. Emerging from the mountains, the undead army swiftly surrounded the capital of the Leviathan Empire, achieving complete strategic domination. At this moment, Emperor Ludwig XII of the Leviathan Empire, the strongest military power in the continent, looked at the overwhelming undead army with a bitter gaze. "Teacher, can we still win?" "Impossible." This time, Imperial Sage Poinkar gave a clear and decisive answer. With the situation developing to this extent, even if the Empire utilizes its ultimate measures, it can only eliminate the million-strong army before their eyes once. The problem is, based on Poinkar's understanding of creatures like liches and skeletal dragons, even if they are reduced to ashes, they won't be completely destroyed. They will quickly return from the netherworld. The King of Undead in the underground cemetery possesses such power that goes beyond life and death. Otherwise, the dragon tribe wouldn't have been unable to continue the fight, was it not because more and more enemies kept coming? Could it be that today is the day of the Empire's downfall? Ludwig XII gnashed his teeth in frustration and started considering some organization that had approached him recently. "No, the war has temporarily ended." Poinkar shook his head, leaving Ludwig XII completely bewildered. "They have come to negotiate." Poinkar couldn't explain to his disciple why he could come up with such an answer. After all, he himself was just a slightly braver monkey. The same scene also occurred near the capitals of other countries. Although not as terrifying in numbers as the legion surrounding the Leviathan Empire's capital, it was still a formidable army that made these countries desperate. In the Divine Era, humans overcame the dragon tribe, who were once superior, and the undead army became humanity's enemy. After completing the siege of the capital of all humankind, the previously silent sky above the undead army was filled with song. That was a timid whisper like giving oneself encouragement. It was a song that once made the dragon clan tremble and even want to run away. "You are amazing. You are very talented. Just keep being like this. You are a good child. It's okay. Don't be afraid. This is what you should do. You must have worked hard. It's okay to cry when you feel like it. You are a lovely songstress, everyone's favorite idol. You are loved by everyone, a one-of-a-kind treasure in the world." The gentle melody echoed across the land. It was the whisper of the dead. It was a poem sung by the Opera House Phantom, expressing the beautiful songstress's confusion and nostalgia for her life. Then, the Death Knights start charging. The liches lift their own staffs and lock onto their hidden treasures. The skeletal dragons, soaring in the sky, emit a soul-shattering, deathly roar as they dive towards the ground. The strongest legion of the Divine Era goes into battle. Within a day, apart from the Sia Kingdom capital that is protected by magical barriers and specially guarded by the highest military leader of the underground cemetery, all other royal cities of different countries have been conquered. Even the fully equipped scientific defense system of the Leviathan Empire, armed to the teeth, only withstands for less than 12 hours against the charge of the Death Knights, the incantations of the Liches, and the aerial strikes of the skeletal dragons. By the time Yun Shi, who arrived a little late after negotiating with the kingdom's shield, returns to the continent, the emblem of the underground cemetery has already been planted everywhere on the continent. Chapter 1177. Yun Shi never imagined that by just spending a little more time on his way back to the continent, he would come back to find the whole world covered with flags of the underground cemetery. It was as if overnight, the underground cemetery completely destroyed all the countries on the Sia continent. Yes, that's true. They simultaneously attacked all the countries on the continent. It took less than 24 hours for the million-strong Opera House Phantom Army to conquer all the lands, starting from the southern borders of the Leviathan Empire to the Northern Tribes Alliance. Most of their forces were focused on attacking the capital of the Leviathan Empire, leaving the other countries with far fewer troops. The Leviathan Empire, known as the strongest military power on the continent, was the only country that resisted until the end. They surrendered only after the Death Knight broke through their city walls and the million-strong undead army entered. It's not that the knights of the Leviathan Empire didn't try hard, but the enemy cheated. Anyone who saw their fallen soldiers turned to ashes by heavy artillery, only to rise again moments later under the Lich's incantations, would feel a sense of despair. It was at this moment that humans could truly experience the terror the dragons felt when faced with this army of death. It's okay, really okay. This is a true legendary army. There are more than 3-digit hero-ranked warriors on the battlefield now. The total number of hero-ranked warriors in the whole continent is probably not even this many, and they are also invincible. How can such a power difference not make people despair? Even the powerful dragon tribe cannot withstand it, let alone the current period of magic decline in Sia's world. This Death Legion, even if it's just a part of the full-force army of the death from the peak period, is enough to sweep the entire continent. After consecutive defeats of the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, the King of Undead in the underground cemetery finally showed his true strength, entering serious mode. As a result, within one day, except for Sia Royal City, which is protected by a magic barrier from the Divine Era, the whole continent fell into ruin. The only city that remains unoccupied by the undead army is the city where the Divine Era Tower is located. Yun Shi, who came back on the Rift Space Dragon from the Snowy World, shook his head when he saw the scene beneath him. The power difference is really too big. The King of Undead in the underground cemetery truly deserves to be recognized by the Dragon Tribe as the continent's champion, with a hidden and immeasurable strength. Luckily, now he has made an alliance with the highest military leader of the other side, so he can at least protect the independence of the Sia Kingdom. If a full-scale war really breaks out, he can at most protect the Sia Royal City, where the Divine Era Tower is located, but other places are beyond his reach. No matter how strong he is in personal combat, he is powerless against opponents of this magnitude. This is the gap between the Legion and individual combat power. Even the owner of the Rift Space Dragon, Kingdom Shield, admits that the tactics used by the Third Layer Guardian, the Opera House Phantom, are almost unsolvable. In theory, as long as the Opera House Phantom is defeated, this terrifying undead army will disintegrate. But the problem is that the Opera House Phantom follows a completely different development path from other ancient weapons. In terms of combat power, the Opera House Phantom may be the weakest among the 4 completed ancient weapons, regardless of attack power, defense power, or speed. The problem is that it doesn't directly appear on the battlefield, but is always located inside the heavily guarded underground cemetery. It controls the coverage area of the undead army, which is the entire continent. Each Death Legion has a projection of the Opera House Phantom to command, which allows them to simultaneously attack all countries on the continent in an organized manner. This amazing power of mental control is the characteristic of the Opera House Phantom. This is an ancient weapon strengthened with extreme mental power. Even though all the data ends with the final digit of 4 guardians, it is the undisputed ace of the underground cemetery, solely based on this terrifying dominion. Rift Space Dragon, ruling the skies. Black Iron Giant, dominating the land. Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, governing the oceans. The Opera House Phantom is the controller of death and is the ancient weapon that best represents the underground cemetery. This invitation from the underground cemetery truly allows humans living in the period of magic tide decline to understand what a real mythical army is. Overnight, even the most proud and arrogant Leviathan Empire had to admit that the true power of the underground cemetery was enough to crush the entire continent. We have arrived. Most of the body was still sealed, carrying the burden of the terrifying Black Iron Giant. The Rift Space Dragon completed its flight journey from the end of the world's South Pole to the Sia Kingdom. Faced with the Rift Space Dragon that could circle around the entire Sia's world in 1 minute, Yinshi was really afraid to remove all the seals at once. That speed was just too terrifying, completely unlike any species that should exist in Sia's world. Natural evolution couldn't possibly evolve to a speed that surpassed the capacity of the entire world. This was only using the acceleration of 3 electric rings. From the body of the Rift Space Dragon, no, from all the ancient weapons in the underground cemetery, Yunshi could smell a civilization that didn't belong to Sia's world. The King of Undead from the underground cemetery, this name that humans secretly erased from history, had too much mystery surrounding it. Upon seeing the figure of the Black Iron Giant, the magic barrier guarding the Sia royal city slowly opened, revealing the figure of the Divine Era Tower. Throughout this day and night, except for the royal city, Sia Kingdom was basically in a state of extreme panic. The eerie undead army eventually surrounded the entire Sia royal city. In the story of the Divine Era, the slow skeleton soldiers that people read about rushed out of the underground cemetery like a white flood with the help of the Lich's acceleration magic, and overnight they conquered the entire Sia continent. Now, besides Sia Royal City, there is no capital city left in any country. At this time, Yun Shi, who was sitting on the Rift Space Dragon, was almost the only hope for the Sia Kingdom's return. It is indeed here. Nothing has changed at all. Walking into the tall tower of the Divine Era, feeling the same environment as the Divine Era, Kingdom Shield was filled with a nostalgic expression. Only here for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, no matter how time passes, it has never changed. The tower that symbolizes the friendship between the Golden Ancient People and the Dragon Clan still stands in this age, where all the Golden Ancient People have passed away and the Dragon Clan has disappeared. Ironically, even though it is proof of the friendship between the two races, both the Golden Ancient People and the Dragon Clan subconsciously forgot its existence in the end. Chapter 1179, Long Time No See. Kingdom Shield raised her hand, and several curious fairy butterflies landed on her fingertips, gracefully dancing. It seemed that they remembered this knight, who had once visited the fairy garden. Only they, untouched by time, took care of these rare flowers and plants in the secluded tower, day after day, like diligent gardeners. "I envy you, always so carefree," Kingdom Shield said, watching the butterflies dance freely in the fairy garden, as if she had returned to her youthful days. Back then, she was pure and flawless, her hands untouched by so much blood. The war between humans and dragons was not as just and righteous as later history books would claim. At that time, there were humans who chose to stand with the strongest race, the dragons, believing the dragons' rule was unshakable. However, they didn't expect the arrival of the King of Undead. Among the millions of undead armies sleeping in the underground cemetery, many were once human armies who had sided with the dragons. And the one who devised the strategy to completely annihilate these human armies was none other than the highest military leader of the underground cemetery, the former #1 knight of the continent. The true King of Undead was actually more inclined towards scholarly research. If it weren't for the situation where war had come to the point where humans and dragons could only remain on the continent, he probably wouldn't have taken the initiative to participate in the fighting. Now, on this continent, you're the only dragon left. You have the qualifications to be the representative of the Dragon Clan and fulfill the original alliance. Regarding the disappearance of the Dragon Clan, not even the Mermaids or the Lamia clan have any clues. It seems that at some point in time, all the dragon clans, as well as some ancient races in the deep sea, completely disappeared from Sia's world. The sky still remains unbroken, and in an era where the magic tide is weakening, many people believe that these races couldn't adapt to the extremely harsh magical environment and naturally died out. Kingdom Shield doesn't believe that the dominant dragon clan of this world would simply vanish, but they also can't find any clues about them. It seems that in this world, there is truly only this young dragon left before our eyes. However, the power of this young dragon is extremely strong, as if it embodies the miracle of the entire dragon clan. The last time this special dragon clan appeared, it was none other than Kingdom Shield's half-body, the Rift Space Dragon. Rift Space Dragon was the only unique dragon species in the history of the Dragon Realm, carrying the hope for the Dragon Clan to break through Sia's world and venture into the stars. During that war, the Rift Space Dragon was tasked with observations and reconnaissance from tens of thousands of meters high in the sky, a position unknown to humans. Theoretically, the weaponry of Sia's world at that time was incapable of reaching the heights where the Rift Space Dragon resided, and even other dragons of the same species posed no threat to it. So, the Dragon Clan allowed the Rift Space Dragon to patrol at such heights with full confidence. This young dragon, who had only ignited 3 electric rings, was responsible for observing the entire Sia's world and preparing for the future breakthrough of Heaven's banishment. The war with humans was impossible to lose, and many dragons even treated it as a game. In the early stages, the ground forces led by the Troll clan alone pushed humans back in constant retreat. If humans didn't have an overwhelming advantage in numbers, the initial casualties would have turned this war into a one-sided massacre. A troll was capable of annihilating half of a human army, an undead monster. No one expected that the Rift Space Dragon would be shot down by a sudden attack, without even a chance for warning or rescue. By the end of the war, the Dragon Clan still didn't know how the Rift Space Dragon died and what kind of attack caused its demise. The hope that soared through the sky was shattered for the Dragon Clan of the Rift Space Dragon. Viewing the death of the Rift Space Dragon as a turning point for the entire battlefield was not an exaggeration. Losing the advantageous position of observing the ground freely from tens of thousands of meters high, combined with the emergence of the King of Undead joining the battle under the control of Opera House fandom, the Undead army began to push back the Dragon army, which once held absolute superiority. In the end, the Dragon Clan retreated from the continent in disappointment, also losing the last hope of breaking through Sia's world, Heaven's banishment. The deceased Rift Space Dragon could no longer grow, and there were only 3 of the 7 electric rings left that could be activated. In a sense, the sudden death of the Rift Space Dragon was more devastating for the Dragon Clan than the failure to claim dominance over the continent. After Kingdom Shield became the sole core of the Rift Space Dragon, one could feel the strong unwillingness and sadness within the body of the deceased dragon. This had nothing to do with war. In reality, the Rift Space Dragon had never participated in the battlefield between humans and dragons. Its goals were far broader. The Rift Space Dragon yearned for the infinite expanse of the starry sky, and for this reason, it gave birth to the 7 electric rings, which theoretically could break through Heaven's banishment. However, both the Rift Space Dragon and the King of Undead lost their most important things because of that war. Millions of years have passed, and everything returns to dust and earth. Even for such long-lived creatures as dragons, there probably aren't any individuals still alive today. The long-dead Rift Space Dragon still holds on to the hope and dream of reaching the stars, and now that dream is passed on to the underground cemetery. The Kingdom Shield approves of the Rift Space Dragon's dream and has decided to fulfill it. It is her promise to the deceased Rift Space Dragon, as well as her obsession. Surely you've noticed the unnaturalness of this world. Sia is the cradle of all living beings in this world, a world created by the body of Leviathan. Now it's time for us, who have grown up in the cradle, to break free and head towards the stars. With eyes full of excitement, Kingdom's shield pointed towards the sky. You can't imagine how vibrant and colorful the world above our heads is, with so many glorious races and legends. What we see, what we observe, is just a tiny fraction of the vastness of the night sky. Come with us and see the true world. I know, that's what the starry sky really looks like. Yunshi looked at the shining kingdom's shield with both eyes. Growing up in the sky soared God's domain, where the star bridge is open and even ordinary people can travel through the stars. He never realized what an incredible civilization achievement it was. The beings who created the endless God's domain star bridge system are truly worthy of being the greatest creator gods in the endless God's domain. It would be better if they weren't his terrifying ex-girlfriends. Chapter 1180. Yun, she always saw the owner of the underground cemetery, the legendary king of undead, as his enemy. The reason is simple. The most constellation gods' weapons on this continent are in the underground cemetery, in the hands of the unfathomable king of undead. The ultimate mission in Sia's world trial that he chose is to collect the 12 constellation gods' weapons, and the battle with the king of undead is almost inevitable. However, after coming into contact with the war weapons under the king of undead, he realized that this king of undead was somewhat different from his impression of an enemy. Innocent princess who passed. War dancer who dedicates to the art of war. The shield that guards something important to the kingdom. Although they hadn't known each other for long, Yunshi was certain that they were not evil people. Especially the past princess and war dancer. They opened their souls to him, allowing him to see their true selves. The past princess's feelings for the king of undead were pure admiration, like the love of a daughter for her father. She would charge into battle against any enemy for him. War dancer's feelings for the king of undead were purely of a loyal subordinate and respect. She saw the king of undead as the greatest ruler and was willing to serve him. The kingdom's shield stood on a higher level and shared the same ideals with the king of undead. So, his goal was the stars? After learning about the king of undead's past achievements in saving the world, Yunshi realized that, setting aside his initial bias, the king of undead truly was the most powerful ruler in the world. Unlike the clever and ambitious Emperor Ludwig XII of the Leviathan Empire, the king of undead has even higher goals and grander ideals. The concept of continental royalty is completely insignificant for this great ruler. That tower, which connects heaven and earth, is the embodiment of his ideals. Yes, the Tower of Babel in Babylon is the heart that leads to the stars. As long as we truly complete this tower, we can leave Sia's cradle and explore a new world. You are possibly the last dragon in this world. Come and help us build the tower that leads to the stars. Kingdom's shield looked at Yunshi with hopeful eyes. This may be the greatest moment of transformation in this world. In this era of declining magical tides, only the mighty dragon before us has the potential to be the decisive factor in the king of undead's conquest of the world. Princess Past and War Dancer have hinted to her more than once that the black iron giant is far from being the most powerful weapon in sight. The silver faceless giant, capable of completely defeating the black iron giant, the terrifying existence of the emerald sea dragon beast, a mysterious weapon that even the underground cemetery has not recorded, is the true trump card of the silver dragon. So, it's settled then. Yunshi made his decision, remembering the sight of the undead army surrounding the various countries, as seen from the sky. With the existence of the faceless god, who could protect the city of Sia, it was clear that relying solely on the power of the faceless god had its limitations. He couldn't protect this world, or rather, it was not his mission to begin with. Sia's world had its own destiny. The rise of the king of undead, Su, and the emergence of the tower to the sky were all choices made by the river of destiny in this world. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time, joining this world that was undergoing a great change. This time, he wasn't the protagonist of this world, but merely one of the participants. This was also a characteristic of the trials in the real world. It wasn't created for him. Creator God Sia, Leviathan, the sky beast, the ancient golden people at the beginning, the weapons of the 12 constellation gods, and the war between the dragon clan and humans. Unlike the incredibly pure water god's world, Sia's world has a long and ancient history. From the divine era to the present, the war between Sia and the Leviathan faction continues, entwined, and creates an epic tale unique to this world. As a visitor from another star, he became a part of the history of this world, but definitely not the main character. This time, the main character of Sia's world's transformation is clearly the king of undead from the underground cemetery. The great king of undead started planning for this world's biggest transformation since the Divine Era War. The rising tower of heaven, at this moment, symbolizes the world's greatest hope. The biggest difference in this iteration of the Star Trial compared to the past is that this world not only exists in reality, but also has a complete history and civilization. Moreover, this seemingly isolated world hides many mysterious clues. At least, the friend who prepared the gift of a faceless god for creator god Sia doesn't exist in the records of Sia's world. The towering tower that rose from the ground clearly exceeds the existing level of civilization in Sia's world. In the depths of destiny, it seems that other worlds have been watching this world for millions of years. The king of undead may be the key to change. Yunshi, just like the Black Iron Giant, the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, and the Rift Space Dragon, also feels the civilization that doesn't belong to this world. Since the king of undead's goal doesn't conflict much with his own, and he is willing to offer the collected constellation gods weapons as a gift of reconciliation and promise to maintain the independence of Sia Kingdom, then it would be wrong to go against it stubbornly. War has never been the best way to solve problems. It is a way when there is no other way. However, this is not something he can decide alone. The people he wants to protect are currently in the Tower of Gods. The future of Sia Kingdom should be determined by them. Ein Adley, Saramanda Heidi Maras, Roland Kaka. In front of the divine artifact known as the Tower of God, Yun Shi, carrying the kingdom's shield, made the announcement of the underground cemetery to everyone. It is up to you to decide whether to continue the fight. This was the power that Yun Shi bestowed upon them, and also the most important moment since the birth of the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. The king of undead in the underground cemetery, an unbeatable ruler. So, his goal is not in Sia's world. At this moment, whether Sia's people or Leviathan's followers, they all knew the truth of the war and the goal of the underground cemetery's master. This is not something that needs to be hidden. The goal of the king of undead has never been the world's power from the beginning. Conquering the world is just one means to achieve that goal. If it wasn't for Yun Shi's existence, this small goal would have been completed long ago. It was precisely because of Yun Shi's extraordinary arrival and consecutive victories against the Black Iron Giant, Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, and Rift Space Dragon that made the Sia Kingdom the most remarkable realm in the world. Chapter 1181 in theory. This is the only force that can cause irreversible damage to the King of Undead's plan. Compared to the Leviathan Empire, which is now hailed as the #1 military power in the continent, the Sia Kingdom with the Tower of Gods is the biggest variable in the underground cemetery's world conquest plan. Even now, the Kingdom's shield has no idea where that silver giant came from. Even in the most detailed Divine Era history books, the underground cemetery never recorded anything about the faceless god. The person who wrote those books is the true successor of the Golden Ancient People, and the King of Undead himself knows everything about the Golden Ancient People. This variable might bring unforeseen problems to the King of Undead's plan to rise the tower and reach the stars. To make this variable disappear, as the highest military officer of the underground cemetery, the Kingdom's shield thinks that the 8 constellation gods' weapons and the independence of a kingdom can be used as bargaining chips. Next, it depends on what decision the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order will make. In fact, when the Kingdom's shield saw the girls from the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order with their own eyes, he was really surprised. The vitality exuding from them, Their radiant and spirited appearance is a miracle that even the underground cemetery has never had. All members of the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, totaling over 1,300, have a familiar radiance on them that the kingdom's shield recognizes. That radiance, which she once possessed as the continent's first knight, is the light that leads to hope and the future, a blessed light from the world. Those who possess this radiance are undoubtedly the most outstanding geniuses of their time. Confidence, strength, unwavering belief in the path they have chosen. Every one of them possesses a miraculous power. Compared to the underground cemetery, which carries the scent of death, the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order is more like the future of Sia's world. Without seeing it with his own eyes, the Kingdom's Shield could not imagine that this ancient divine-era tower still possesses such unimaginable power. Only after seeing the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, the former #1 knight of the continent, Kingdom's Shield, could be certain that this is the starting point for the next change in Sia's world. Perhaps everyone was wrong. The new history of Sia's world will be passed down in their hands. However, this also aligns with the king's hopes. The king of undead, who loves Sia's world more than anyone else, never once had the idea of destroying the world. It is because of his genuine love for Sia's world that this king ultimately gained recognition from Sia's world and became the most powerful king of undead in its history. We are just dust in history. Are they the inheritors of history? Watching the youthful Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, Kingdom's Shield felt for the first time that time, which seemed to be permanently stagnant in his body, was starting to flow uncontrollably again. The secret magic of the soul core seemed to be affected by the youthful vitality of these girls belonging to the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, resulting in an unexpected void. When Kingdom's Shield saw them, he truly realized that he had already died and would never have such youth and life again. Why did they have to think of such things only now? Didn't they already make a choice at that time? Maybe she was just jealous. Really, just a little bit jealous. If I were born in this era, maybe I would also become a member of the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. Being less than 18 years old and pure and innocent, she also meets the requirements. It relates to the future of the whole world, and this future will be decided by the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, all of whom are under 18 years old. Upon careful thought, the composition of this Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order does indeed represent the future of the entire world of Sia. Sia Kingdom, Leviathan Empire, Northern Alliance, Leviathan faction. They had a lot of power. Some say they were a miniature of the entire Sia's world. I think I can accept it. I was the first to make a choice. As the nuclear explosion queen, the leader of Sia Continent, her decision was the decision of Sia Kingdom. She believed in Lord Silver Dragon more than anyone else. Yunshi gave her the authority to form the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, representing absolute trust in her. The future of Sia's world belongs to Lord Silver Dragon. No matter how powerful the King of Undead is, they won't be a match for Lord Silver Dragon. However, if there is a chance to avoid war, that would naturally be good. The princess and the knight are both good people. Adley doesn't think that the King of Undead is a bad person either. Adley has a slightly higher fondness for the underground cemetery compared to the Leviathan Empire, which killed her parents. The past princess, war dancer, and the king's shield in front of her all trace back to the divine era and have Virgo bloodline. They're her relatives. At this point, there are no other options. I agree. As Roland, the princess of the Leviathan Empire, she can see the current situation more clearly. Compared to the still surviving capital of the Sia Kingdom, the captured capital of the Leviathan has completely surrendered to the underground cemetery without even having a chance for negotiations. Of course, her stubborn and self-willed father, Ludwig XII, would never submit to anyone, even if the opponent is the legendary King of Undead. Compared to her father, Princess Roland, who has joined the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, can see the future direction of this world more clearly. Like Kingdom's Shield, she also felt that the future of this world was here, in the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. The past kings belong to the dragon race. The current king belongs to the King of Undead from the underground cemetery. And the future king will definitely be born in the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. Humans are really troublesome. Isn't that guy always wearing the crown of the continent? Saramanda didn't care at all about who the ruler of the continent was. Whether it's the dragon race or the king of undead, the troll clan always follows the natural law of survival of the fittest. Nobody has the time to bother the troll clan in harsh volcanic areas. After the war between humans and the dragon race ended, the troll clan became completely free. Besides recently worrying about their fertility due to the decline in the period of magic tide, the trolls are living happily. The continent's kingship does indeed belong to that king. We have no intention of interfering, compared to the rebellious troll clan that only follows the commands of the dragon race. The Mermaid clan and Lamia clan have always been crucial pillars of the Leviathan faction. Chapter 1182. The Leviathan faction has long recognized the fact that humans have become the rulers of the continent. The wars between humans have nothing to do with the Leviathan faction anymore. Rather, it is strange for the Leviathan faction to see humans attacking each other. They belong to the same race, and it's not a matter of life or death such as water or food. How could they fight to the point of losing their minds? Queen Ayn of the Sia Kingdom, who possesses the power to fight against the underground cemetery, is the last hope for humans. Princess Roland, the princess of the strongest military nation on the continent. Representatives of the Leviathan faction, Saramanda, Heidi, and Miraz. The majority of the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order have made the same decision. They decided the outcome of the war. From this point on, the contract was complete. Thank you. Then please come to the Tower of the Sky in a week. The king will host you and all the kings from around the world. A new era is about to begin. Kingdom Shield smiled as they accepted the best possible outcome they could imagine. Perhaps the choices made by the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order in this tower are more important than the submission of those kings. They hold the future and hope of this world. On the third level of the underground cemetery, the beautiful songstress opened her eyes and clasped her hands together. Finally, the world is at peace. Indeed, knights are the most outstanding. I absolutely cannot do such a thing. The undead army, spread throughout the entire Sia continent, began to orderly retreat, leaving only a part of the legion stationed in the locations already marked by the underground cemetery. These seemingly ordinary locations on the surface are important mining resources born during the period of magic tide. Just as Imperial Sage Poinkar said, magic doesn't appear out of thin air, nor does it suddenly disappear. The period of magic tide decline is simply a tidal period of natural phenomena in Sia's world. During the peak of the magic tide, mages of the divine era practiced effortlessly. Even ordinary people could easily come into contact with magical elements in the air, and fairy butterflies would dance in human gardens. When the magic tide weakens, the magical elements in the air precipitate deep into the earth and transform into various minerals and resources that cannot be absorbed by humans. The world begins to enter a period of magic scarcity. However, for science and the underground cemetery with advanced extraterrestrial technology, this period is like a golden age. The Leviathan Empire, which developed science, found a key called science and started developing steam technology and mechanical skills. They almost ruled the world, just one step away. However, because of the large-scale development of the Leviathan Empire and a sudden event, the closed underground cemetery came back to life. This era was the best and the worst of times. The ancient and mysterious underground cemetery came back to life, and brand new science was born. Like the gears of destiny, the whole world of Sia reached a crucial moment. In the fourth week after the reappearance of the underground cemetery, representatives from all countries and continents of Sia's world began advancing towards the Sky Tower, located in the mountains. The underground cemetery, which conquered the world and completed an alliance with Sia Kingdom, demonstrated its absolute crushing strength, forcing all nations to surrender. Apart from Sia Kingdom maintaining its special status, even military powers like the Leviathan Empire had to swallow the bitter fruit of defeat. On several continents far beyond Sia continent, which were still under the rule of classical imperial powers at the medieval level, there was no way to resist the undead army commanded by the Rift Space Dragon and the Opera House Phantom. The Opera House Phantom, ruled by the singing diva, once again showed the world what it means to have mountains of corpses and seas of bones, and what it means to defeat with just one push of a button. The underground cemetery, which was born again, conquered the entire world in just 3 weeks. During most of that time, they were engaged in battle with the guardian of Sia Kingdom, which was Yunshi. The defeat and capture of the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast were the only major setbacks during the process of conquering the world for the underground cemetery. Despite losing, the Rift Space Dragon fought, and with the charisma and overall perspective of the Kingdom's shield, fulfilled the agreement with the Sia Kingdom Guardian, overcoming the final obstacle in the underground cemetery's conquest of the world. Now, it is the beginning of a new era for the entire Sia's world. Sia Kingdom, Leviathan Empire, Northern Alliance, New Continent Alliance, including the Mermaid Clan in the sea, the Dwarf Tribe underground, and the Lamia Clan in the marsh area. All races and factions of Sia's world, except for the long-lost dragon race and some deep-sea races that disappeared with them, have sent their representatives to participate in the alliance of the underground cemetery. Without a doubt, the underground cemetery, having completed the world conquest plan, is now the strongest force in this world. The return of the King of Undead has already been recorded in contemporary history books. Many forces were very curious about the heir of the Golden Ancient People, who were said to have inherited great power across generations. This is the only remaining legend of humanity, a living and immortal legend that has survived from the divine era to the present day. The army of Death Knights, numbering over 3 digits, the Undying Lich Mage Legion, the Flying Skeletal Dragon Army in the sky, were invincible forces not only in the modern era of magic decline, but even in the divine era. Humanity deliberately erased the King of Undead from history books, but with the revival of the underground cemetery by Su, all their efforts became futile. The immense power of the King of Undead and the terrifying power of the underground cemetery once again revealed themselves to the entire world. The true king of the continent has returned. Apart from suffering a defeat in the early stages against the mysterious silver giant in Sia Kingdom, the process of the King of Undead conquering the world was like breaking dry branches, and even the mighty Leviathan Empire could only hold on for a short time. Considering the scale of a world-conquering war, the casualties of other nations, except for the resistance put up by the Leviathan Empire until the end, were surprisingly low. Thanks to the dominion of the Opera House Phantom and the enchanting songstress, a girl who herself disliked killing, coupled with the absolute power displayed by the undead army, most countries didn't even have the thought of resisting. From the perspective of combat power, this ending had already been decided. If there hadn't been the unexpected arrival of Sia Kingdom Guardian, it's likely that the conquest of the world by the underground cemetery wouldn't have taken more than a week. At this moment, the entire Sia's world map has been replaced with new flags. Except for a small area in Sia Kingdom where the White Tower flag still stands, all other countries' maps have been covered by the flag of the deceased. A new era has arrived. Chapter 1183. The previously silent mountain range began to grow noisy 3 days ago. The Leviathan Empire, which is closest to the Central Mountains, sent a delegation of over 10,000 members, led by Ludwig XII himself, to the Sky Tower where the underground cemetery is located. Is this the miraculous structure that person wants to build? Teacher, does that madman really want to break through the sky? Is this not a funny joke at all? It doesn't make me laugh. Ludwig XII, who was once just a step away from uniting the mainland, couldn't sleep well all week. His eyes were filled with madness and unwillingness, carrying a dangerous aura. We don't have enough data, but this tower is truly something that has never been recorded in history before. If the goal of the King of Undead is truly the night sky, then this tower is truly a miracle. Poinkar, an imperial sage, looked excitedly at the miraculous structure called the Babylon Sky Tower before him. The trembling of his hands represented that his emotions were even more intense than they appeared. Sympathy and understanding. Perhaps this is the feeling that only humans standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid of wisdom can have. Looking at the architectural structure, this is simply not feasible. Asmod, an alchemical warlock and craftsman, drew this conclusion based on his professional habits. No matter how you look at it, the architectural structure of this tower is not normal at all. The foundation cannot support a tower that reaches over 10,000 meters. This tower should have completely collapsed halfway through its construction. And how is this length of tower hidden underground? The lower half of the tower has even reached the mantle layer. You know? Don't look at Dad's masterpiece with mortal wisdom. Princess Pass floated in front of Poinkar and Asmod, puffing up her chest. This is something that Dad's divine era already completed, and it's only halfway built now. In a little while, this Babylon Sky Tower will be even taller and bigger. Poinkar took a deep breath and looked at the towering tower. Indeed, compared to when it first appeared in the world, this tower called the Babylon Sky Tower has increased in height. According to the information collected by the Leviathan Empire, over 1 million undead armies are continuously excavating from all over the world and transporting supplies to these central mountains. Even now, you can see a large number of undead soldiers carrying crystal-like refined substances, shuttling through the construction site below the tower. Occasionally, skeleton soldiers would fall from above 10,000 meters in the sky, crashing into pieces with a snap. However, with the incantations of nearby liches, they quickly stood up and continued walking into the tower's interior. Judging from the constantly increasing number of undead entering the tower, the size of the tower's interior must be much larger than it appears, a true architectural marvel. No wonder, after the Divine Era war ended, the precious minerals on the continent disappeared so much. They were all taken away by the underground cemetery. Some records that didn't match the Divine Era are now becoming clear in Poinkar's calculations. Even the reason why the underground cemetery conquered the world can be easily deduced. They collected resources with maximum efficiency, without changing the political systems of each country. The King of Undead didn't need the submission of humans, only the resources of this world. Conquering the world was just a preparation for collecting resources. The Leviathan Empire really had bad timing, encountering such a monstrous opponent. Conquer the world just for this reason? Ludwig Xi's expression as he looked at the Tower of Heaven was not right. Only to build this incredible tower, they conquered the whole world and used the world's resources to complete this task. How arrogant. What a mess. It turns out having great power truly allows one to do whatever they want. If I had such power too. Ludwig XII tightly clenched his fist with a dangerous gleam in his eyes, growing stronger by the moment. Father. A familiar voice startled Ludwig XII. It was not the voice of a member of his Leviathan envoy. Roland, Ludwig XII looked at his daughter with a complex expression. She had been sent as a hostage to the Sia Kingdom's princess. Originally, she had been considered a pawn in Ludwig Xi's plan, sent as compensation for the war to the Sia Kingdom. She can be seen as a princess knight belonging to the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order or a noble, but both are considered pawns discarded by Ludwig XII. Being under 18 and a female, no matter how talented, as long as they are not hero-ranked knights, they can be abandoned by Ludwig XII. Who would have thought that this princess, considered as a cast-off, would persistently achieve the promotion to hero-ranked within the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order and take hold of her own destiny? Now, as an advanced hero-ranked knight, she is no longer a pawn that Ludwig XII can sacrifice at will. In theory, as a member of the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, she no longer has a direct affiliation with the Leviathan Empire. The current Princess Roland no longer belongs to the Leviathan Empire. Roland herself understands this. Ever since she left the Leviathan Empire and became a member of the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, there is no going back. Sia Kingdom, how fortunate. Why don't we have such powerful guardians? As the only exceptional kingdom in the underground cemetery conquest plan, Sia Kingdom is the world's only remaining independent nation. In other countries, the kings are supposed to be the highest leaders, but they are all actually controlled by the lich. These liches, who used to be divine-era mages, know very well how to rule the country and become the masters of everyone. It can be anticipated that soon after the liches take control of all the highest power, the kings will become puppets, only existing as mascots. If we also had such power, Ludwig's eyes nails dug deep into his flesh. He was not convinced and didn't admit this fact. It would be great if Sia Kingdom's guardian could fight Underground Cemetery to a draw, or even destroy each other. For Leviathan Empire, reaping the benefits without doing anything is the best outcome. Unfortunately, things didn't unfold as he had imagined. The mysterious guardian of Sia Kingdom actually made peace with Underground Cemetery. Traitors of mankind, you shouldn't fight against each other. Shouldn't you fight until the last drop of blood? Why did you reach a settlement, letting this world lose hope to resist the king of undead? Chapter 1184 Father. The war has ended. Despite being an abandoned child, Roland could still understand the current feelings of the Emperor, who was renowned as the conqueror. Once, Leviathan Empire was only one step away from conquering the continent. She also once believed that Leviathan Empire would dominate this era. However, the turning point of fate always comes so suddenly. The appearance of the forbidden spell of nuclear explosion, the return of the Underground Cemetery, and the war that decided the fate of the world. The Leviathan Empire became the biggest loser, while the Underground Cemetery became the winner. The choice made by the Sia Kingdom was the last straw that broke the camel's back. What Ludwig XII hoped for, the final battle between the Guardian of Sia Kingdom and the Underground Cemetery, where the whole Sia Kingdom fought until their last drop of blood, and the situation of the Underground Cemetery's forces being greatly depleted didn't occur. If the ruler of Sia Kingdom was still Ludwig Xi's dear friend, the king who led the Royal Knight Corps and the Empire's first magic army legion in a battle, perhaps he would really do it. Ein, Adley's father, was the one who held on to the traditions and knightly honor of Sia Kingdom until the end. Even if facing an unbeatable enemy, he would fight until the last breath. This was what Ludwig XII expected, exactly this kind of outcome. However, his former dear friend had already been killed by his own first magic army legion. The new queen of Sia Kingdom, Ein, had a vision beyond the world and firmly believed that the magnificent silver dragon would bring about a whole new change. She went beyond racial limitations and created a brand new group called the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. It was this unique Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, consisting of multiple races, that made the decision. United by a magical coincidence, they had a vision that went beyond the discrimination and prejudice widely seen among nations. Since even companions of different races could accept each other, everyone was bathed in the glorious light of the mighty and sacred silver dragon. Naturally, they all had the same hopes for the future as the silver dragon. Yunshi felt there was no need to continue fighting, and they could sense Yunshi's hope, so they made the same choice. Ludwig Xi's anticipation for a fierce battle between Sia Kingdom's guardian and Underground Cemetery was completely shattered. The scenario where both sides would fight to the last drop of blood and the last bullet vanished. Upon encountering the past princess and the soul core of the war dancer, Yunshi realized that the king of undead was not evil, and their goal seemed to be anything but destruction and world annihilation. Therefore, there was no longer a need for a fight to the bitter end. Kingdom Shield discovered this and made the decisive decision to send out the constellation God's weapons. They successfully convinced Yunshi, making Sia Kingdom the only exception in this world-conquering war. This exception is based on the condition that Yunshi defeated the Black Iron Giant, Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, and Rift Space Dragon, and showcased his own strength. On the other hand, Leviathan Empire's plan to profit from the chaos completely failed. This made Ludwig XII unable to hate and unwilling to accept it. Now, return to the Empire, my daughter. Knowing the news of Roland advancing to hero ranked, Ludwig XII regretted it a long time ago. No one could have expected that in just over a month of joining the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order, Roland crossed the barrier from ordinary to hero ranked. In the current period of declining magical tide, the difficulty of becoming hero-ranked is unimaginable. The magically infused plants that were common in the past divine era have become increasingly scarce, and even the medicinal potions provided by the royal family are decreasing. Even for geniuses like Roland, the probability of becoming a hero-ranked knight is extremely slim. It can be said that it's like gambling luck, and that's why Ludwig XII gave up on her. The princess, who is not yet 18 years old and is not a hero-ranked knight, is destined to be a political pawn for marriage alliances and can be discarded at any time. Not everyone can be like the king and queen of Sia Kingdom, who are siblings and childhood sweethearts. They are simply a perfect match destined to feed others with their love. He had many offspring, and even though he was young and strong, he had several lovers and illegitimate children outside. Some of them were just as talented as Roland, but since I needed Roland as a hostage, she had to give up on him. That Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order thing, Ludwig XII was always seen as a joke from the beginning. Sorry, father, I have already joined the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. Since that day, there's no going back. Roland shook his head. She had understood long ago that she had been abandoned by her father. The wise and mighty emperor, he didn't care about one of his daughters. All he had in his eyes was conquering the world. Whether it was him or the Leviathan Empire, they had already become an unstoppable war machine. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the underground cemetery, the Leviathan Empire would probably have started preparing to conquer the seas and other continents by now. The Leviathan Empire, driven by its scientific governance, is so aggressive because of its unlimited demand for resources. It's an inevitable result. The Conquer the World plan made by Imperial Sage Poinkar for Ludwig XII has proven to be truly effective. His own father, who had long been obsessed and unable to detach himself from this plan, never once cared about his own growth. For the great emperor, children were just carriers of the empire's inheritance. Ludwig XII, who is still youthful and powerful and will not abdicate the world stage for several decades, would never be willing to exit in this way. Roland, who once thought this was only natural, no longer sees it that way. Because in the tall tower of the divine era, she encountered a presence even greater than her own father. In her heart, the mad conquer-the-world plan of the Leviathan Empire is no longer the only thing. Now she can be certain that the Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order is the future of the world and the hope of Sia. Whether it's the Leviathan Empire or the underground cemetery, they cannot compare to the future Holy Silver Dragon Knight Order. So, she wants to tell her father now to give up. Father, please don't pursue that ambition anymore. The world is no longer the same as before. This was Roland's final warning. She vaguely felt that something was off with her father. He had become more extreme and dangerous compared to her impression of him. Yes, the world has changed. Some things have also changed. Ludwig XII held his forehead and burst into uncontrollable laughter. Black specks appeared silently in his eyes. Chapter 1185 Inside the Tower of Heaven. Climbing the stairs that led closer to the endless starry sky. Yunshi curiously looked around at the supplies being continuously lifted up vertically, along with those tireless skeleton undead. Putting aside their outer appearance prejudice towards the undead, these skeletons are truly outstanding workers. Working nonstop for 24 hours, they don't need wages, food, or rest and entertainment. As long as orders are given, these undead will work until the end of the world. The interior of the entire tower has a large number of structures similar to the Divine Era Tower in the Sia Kingdom. The same huge space, the same complex stairs. The magic concentration is also beyond the normal level. Except for not being able to see the garden and fairy butterflies, this is an enlarged and heightened Divine Era Tower, and it's still in an unfinished stage. The owner of this tall tower is the ancient king of undead. Yunshi is the guest who was invited by the king of undead. The 8 constellation gods' weapons and the owner of the underground cemetery are waiting for Yunshi at the top of the tower. This is a meeting prepared by the kingdom's shield for Yunshi, and it is also the first time the legendary king of undead has met with someone from outside the underground cemetery since its return. Prince Ash from the Sia Kingdom, the last remaining dragon race on the continent. Yuanxi carries both of these identities at the same time and is about to meet the legendary king of undead. From the words of the past princess and the war dancer, Yuanxi roughly depicted the outline of the king of undead. This is a legendary magician who excels in research and academia. The ancient weapons he created far exceeded the civilization level of Sia's world. The golden ancient people, who symbolize the origin of humans in Sia's world, were the true friends of this king. It was because of their downfall that the king of undead stepped onto the battlefield and determined the outcome of that war. The Rift Space Dragon, an ultimate weapon used by the dragon tribe to explore the stars, was personally shot down by the king of undead, who is still in its development stage. Powerful and mysterious, wise and steady, emotional but not good at socializing. With lofty ideals, he has always been down to earth in his efforts towards this goal, never giving up. This is the impression that Yuanxi has gained after combining the perspectives of past princess, war dancer, and kingdom shield regarding the king of undead. Now, he is only a door away from this legendary king. The highest floor of Babylon Sky Tower, surrounded by constantly under construction floating floors, can be said to be the tallest place in the whole world. Yuanxi stands in front of the grand gate engraved with history. The outline of the 12 constellation gods' weapons is clearly carved on this gate, as if commemorating their lost friends, benefactors, and lovers. Surrounding the 12 constellation gods' weapons is a broader and more detailed sky of stars, which is the dream and lifelong goal of the king of undead. Now, this goal has finally reached its most crucial moment. In order to achieve it, the king of undead agreed to the request of Kingdom's shield and gifted the precious constellation gods' weapons and Sia Kingdom's independence rights to Yuanxi. "Come in, sacred silver dragon." A slightly deep voice came from the other side of the gate, summoning Yuanxi, who was standing in front of the 12 constellation gods' weapons. "Sorry for bothering you." Yuanxi appeared somewhat nervous in the presence of this legendary figure, the king of undead. The true form of the puppet of the faceless god is now on him, so if anything goes wrong, he can immediately transform and activate the Patha system. After a long silence, the grand gate slowly opens, revealing the scenery behind it. That looked a little different from what Yuanxi imagined. A huge tower blueprint stood in the middle of the room, rotating constantly and occasionally stopping. The king of undead, wearing black armor and a red cloak on his back, meticulously adjusted the blueprint of the tower, pointing at its structures from time to time. Every time he pointed, the densely scattered undead soldiers on the diagram would adjust their tasks, modifying the unstable structures and filling the newly delivered materials into the tower. There was no sense of killing or dominance that Yuanxi had imagined. The king of undead, wearing black armor, seemed completely absorbed in his work like a scholar, forgetting everything about the conversation with Yuanxi. It took a full 10 minutes after calling Yuanxi for the king of undead to finally pause from his work. Only after completing a small phase of the project and allocating all the newly arrived resources to the construction of Babylon Sky Tower. "I'm sorry for keeping you waiting for so long. I've been busy with tower repairs lately. If you came to get Constellation God's weapons, they have already been prepared for you." Thinking about Yuanxi's past impression, the king of undead's tone was even calmer and more friendly than imagined. Even more incredible, although it was their first meeting, Yuanxi felt a strange fondness for the king of undead in front of him. Just recently, they were enemies who had to determine a winner and loser, but if it wasn't for Kingdom's shield taking the initiative to reconcile, both sides might still be at war. Yet, when Yuanxi truly arrived in front of the king of undead, he found that everything was slightly different from what he had imagined. Are you not a dragon of this world?" Just as Yuanxi was puzzled and confused, the king of undead smiled softly and revealed the truth that Yuanxi had been hiding. "Huh?" Yuanxi looked at the king of undead in astonishment, not knowing when he had revealed a flaw. "Because you possess the same aura as me, which doesn't belong to Sia's world. The princess, the knight, and the dancer cannot sense this. But I immediately noticed it when I saw you. Because I am also the same kind of person. The king of undead gazed gently at Yunxi. She didn't know why, but when she saw Yunxi, she didn't feel distant. Instead, she felt a sense of familiarity. The Dragon Clan and the organization she belonged to were not enemies, but rather had a lot of cooperation between them. Although she didn't know where this wandering sacred silver dragon came from, she wanted it to become a source of power for her side, if possible. To show sincerity, the king of undead took off his helmet, revealing his soft and radiant silver hair, as well as his gentle and charming face. In that instant, Yunxi completely turned to stone, because he recognized the person in front of him. Rather, this person was one of the closest and most special people in his world. In the small town, she always shyly showed him a gentle smile. She was Elphyllis, the daughter of the jeweler, who was the most like an older sister among all childhood friends. Elphyllis was the girl that, in Yunxi's imagination, besides Hua Hua, was the most suitable for marriage among all childhood friends. Chapter 1186. How is that possible? It's her. Yunxi couldn't help but open his mouth, looking at his childhood sweetheart, Elphyllis, the heiress of the jewelry store, with eyes that seemed as if the world was crumbling. Even if his 4 creator-level girlfriends were to appear in front of him now and say, "You're already dead," it would still not be as shocking as what Yunxi was experiencing. The Elphyllis he remembered was the most knowledgeable and elegant among his childhood friends, recognized by everyone in the town as the most suitable bride. As the heiress of the jewelry store, Yunxi often joined her family for dinner. She seemed very happy to entertain everyone at her home. Despite being an heiress, she was very approachable, especially caring towards Yunxi. In Yunxi's eyes, she, who was 1 year older than him, was like an older sister. Although Hua Hua was always Yunxi's first choice, compared to the Summer Queen who radiated dazzling brilliance and was destined to leave the town, the gentle and beautiful Elphyllis, like a crystal, also appeared frequently in Yunxi's future. For a suitable marriage partner, Elphyllis is actually the best candidate. Since she was 14 years old, countless boys and young men from neighboring villages confessed their love and sent love letters to this heiress of the jewelry store, like bamboo shoots after the rain. Of course, she rejected everything. When they played house as children, Elphyllis often played the role of a mother, while always assertively took the role of the groom, and Miley and Yili could only be the daughters. Well, if you ask Yunxi what role Hua Hua assigned to him, there's only the role of the bride left. No matter when, Elphyllis in Yunxi's memories was always so gentle, understanding, and the best at resolving conflicts among childhood friends. She often came to Yunxi's bakery with a parasol, always managing to find time when Hua Hua wasn't around and getting a chance to spend time with Yunxi. Hua Hua had no idea how many stories had happened between Elphyllis and Yunxi while she was practicing. Ahem, don't misunderstand, it was just a simple afternoon tea chat time. Compared to living in a small town and inheriting the family bakery in the future, Yunxi dreamed of being an excellent baker. Elphyllis seemed to have experienced a wider world. During afternoon tea with Yunxi, she would always tell him some incredible stories from Endless God's domain. That legendary Casina, the Battle God, has won the Battle God's Grand Martial Arts Tournament again. The almighty Ionia, the great god from the Western God's domain, got angry and punished several gods by banishing them from their divine realms. In the Northern God's domain, Dragon God Asha, the ruler, held a birthday banquet for his daughter and invited many gods to attend. Wait, how does she know all this? When Yunxi was a child, he used to consider these unbelievable stories as myths. For a boy living in an ordinary small town, concepts like the creator god, Casina the battle god, were nothing but imaginary beings he could never encounter in his lifetime. But now, he carries the curse of Asha's star-hunting dragon, his former girlfriend. Casina the battle god embedded the seed of the battle god into his body. What's wrong with my face? The king of undead from the underground cemetery in Elphyllis, the heir of the 10 Leaves Alliance, tilted her head, looking somewhat puzzled at Yuan-Shi in front of her. No, I just never imagined that the king of undead would be such a beautiful lady. Yuan-Shi stared blankly at Elphilis, who seemed familiar, yet unfamiliar. This was a side of Elphilis that he didn't know. Her silver hair, cascaded shining like moonlight, resembling an elf from a story. You too, beautiful silver dragon. Is your name Ash? Elphilis put down her magic pen. The more she looked at Yuan-Shi, the more she felt that the silver dragon before her possessed an extraordinary and otherworldly aura, something that only non-humans could have. When she was little, she had attended a grand birthday banquet for the North Dragon god Asha, and had gotten up close with the Asha who was known as the Supreme Dragon God. From Yuan-Shi, she could faintly sense a resemblance to Asha, a lineage that was undoubtedly of the highest level. Perhaps it had accidentally stumbled into this world. She had studied the Bone Dragon Legion in the underground cemetery, and discovered that these so-called dragon clans were mostly inferior. They could not compare at all to the true pure blood of the Northern God's domain. They could only be considered as mixed breeds with partial dragon blood. Thinking about the origin of Leviathan the Sky Beast, she could probably guess why the dragon clans in this world were so weak that even scholarly heroes like the King of Undead could defeat them. Clearly, there were too many flaws in the incomplete dragon bloodline. However, the silver dragon before her was different. Its lineage was definitely the most pure, likely belonging to the legendary level of bloodline at the top of the pyramid even in the dragon god's domain. It might even be a descendant of the sacred dragons created by Asha herself. No wonder the black iron giant, emerald sea dragon beast, and even the rift space dragon were no match for it. True dragons and mixed blood dragons are completely different. Those favored by Asha were born as super beings, surpassing the entire endless god's domain in terms of their racial value. Yes, Ash. Yuan-Shi couldn't say his real name and didn't even dare to recognize his childhood friend in front of him. The curse he carried was really heavy. The enemies chasing after him now have become so powerful that there is no force that can protect him. Among the 4 towers that form the foundation of the entire Endless God's Domain civilization, their owners are his enemies. The 4 former girlfriends of the Creator Gods are watching you. They are deciding the punishment you will receive. It's terrifying, but Yuan-Shi can only disguise his identity in order to survive. The Constellation God's weapons you wanted are all here. These are all splendid creations of fantasy, and they should satisfy you. Elphilis clapped her hands, and 8 boxes with different constellations engraved on them appeared in the corner of the room. This is the advice given to her by Kingdom's Shield, and it's also the decision she made. Although it may slightly inconvenience the former immortal king who entrusted everything to her, he, as someone who wants to change Sia's world even in death and make it a part of Endless God's domain, probably wouldn't mind these things. As an elite of the 10 Leaves Alliance, initially he came to this world only for a mission, but later on, it was obvious that he devoted everything to this mission. All the things he left behind were built for this great goal. Ah, thank you. Yuan-Shi took a deep breath and smiled brightly. Thank you, Elphilis. It's really great to be able to meet you again. Chapter 1190 Yuan-Shi felt uneasy and even panicked as he looked at the 8 Constellation God's weapons, which were the targets of his trial. Compared to these Constellation God's weapons, Elphilis's presence now mattered more to him. Truly, he had so many things he wanted to say to his childhood sweetheart. Why are you here? Didn't you go to study in the Western God's domain? Elphilis, this place is very dangerous, no. Why are you the king of undead in the underground cemetery? Yuan-Shi learned about Elphilis, Miley, and Yili going to study in the Western God's domain from Huahua. The information also came back through the seeds planted in them. After they both attended school at the White Lotus Sword Palace, he and Huahua chose to study at a higher-level school in the Western God's domain, so they won't be able to see each other for a while. Yuan-Shi never dreamt that he would be completely cut off from the Endless God's domain in his own star trial world. He can say he is not in the civilization of the Endless God's domain, and he met his childhood sweetheart. Elphilis looked at Yuan-Shi's anxious eyes, feeling a bit puzzled. Is there any problem with these constellation gods' weapons? No, there's no problem with these constellation gods' weapons. The problem is you, Elphilis. Yunshi pretended to inspect these 8 ancient constellation gods' weapons. His mind was in complete chaos. In his memories, Elphilis, the young lady from the jewelry store, was always his top alternative to Hua Hua for marriage. She had a gentle personality, was close to his age, and was recognized as a lady in the town. Every year, there were so many people sending her love letters and arranging marriage proposals that they almost crowded the doorstep of her jewelry store, and many of them were even from other towns. Her family's jewelry store was always very busy, and the people who came to propose felt like they were going crazy buying gemstones, just like buying groceries at a market stall. The knowledgeable and well-mannered young lady. The gentle and virtuous lady. And she had an amazing figure. Even Yunshi's parents were very pleased. She was always ranked first on the most desired bride list of all the nearby towns. Unlike the dazzling Hua Hua, who was destined for greatness, Elphilis was closer to what Yunshi imagined as the ideal bride. He had considered more than once that if Hua Hua really left the White Lotus Sword domain, maybe he would choose Elphilis as his future partner. Elphilis didn't shine like Hua Hua. If Hua Hua was the queen of summer, shining like the sun, then Elphilis was a blooming purple Roland in the garden, elegant and captivating. At least compared to the almost impossible future of marrying Hua Hua. The once ordinary Yun, she felt that his chances of marrying Elphilis were greater. Counting the days, Hua Hua was going to participate in the Sword Palace exam. In the days when they would no longer be able to see each other, Yunshi thought carefully about the future with their other childhood friends. If they were to get married, Elphilis would be the most suitable. If it was about love, perhaps Miley would be more appropriate. As for Yi Li, well, they were just too young, so they could only hope for the future. For Yunshi, who had already planned out the next 30 years of his life, unaware of his tragic future of being pursued by his 4 creator-level ex-girlfriends, this was the visible life. It's not that he didn't like Hua Hua. He had just realized early on that Hua Hua, like the sun, would definitely go to a place he could never reach. He had always considered Hua Hua to be the most important person to him, but back then, he didn't have the ability to keep up with her. The two of them were like intersecting lines. After crossing paths at that moment, they were destined not to be together. Hua Hua was his first love, the forever most beautiful feeling, something that could never be forgotten no matter when, a perpetual crush. And Elphilis, Miley and Yi Li were the ones who were real. Yunshi at that time really thought that way. The impact on Yunshi from Elphilis, as he remembered her, being so gentle, was immense. It was completely unbelievable that, far beyond the White Lotus Sword domain by countless light years, sitting on the throne of the underground cemetery, was his childhood friend Elphilis. You, aren't you the past king of undead? Yunshi took a deep breath. The legend of the king of undead in the underground cemetery could be traced back to the divine era of the war between humans and dragons in this world. No matter how he thought about it, that king of undead couldn't possibly be the Elphilis in front of him. Or could it be that the Elphilis he knew had actually lived for millions of years? Yes, the previous king of undead was an incredibly remarkable person. He was an excellent scholar and the person who understood this world the most. Elphilis's answer relieved Yunshi. At least it wasn't the worst possible answer. However, this is not enough. He really wants to know more things, more truths. You are the new king of the undead. What is your name? Yunshi couldn't care less about being impolite. He had too many questions he wanted to ask. Elphilis, that is my name. Ash, would you like to become my ally? This world needs change. I want to fulfill the last wish of the previous king of the undead. Elphilis's gaze remained as gentle as Yunshi remembered. However, she was no longer the young lady of the jewelry store. She was now the ruler of the underground cemetery, deciding the fate of Sia's world as the king of the undead. From her, Yunshi could sense an incredibly powerful force, even stronger than the black iron giant and the emerald sea dragon beast combined. Familiar, yet unfamiliar. Even though she was right in front of him, Yunshi couldn't reveal his identity, unable to acknowledge her. I, willingly, Yunshi gazed at the familiar gentle face, unsure of what expression to show at this moment. Elphilis also noticed the complex gaze of the silver dragon in front of her. Confusion, unease, curiosity, and it seemed like a place she had seen before, a nostalgic scent. Elphilis is a very beautiful name. Yunshi awkwardly extended his hand, like meeting a childhood friend for the first time. A small hand as white as snow, with the essence of a dragon's life coursing through the skin. And only 14 years old, Elphilis couldn't recognize him, which was only natural. However, when Yunshi held Elphilis's outstretched hand, his heartbeat accelerated as usual. Just like when he carried Hua Hua on his back, during tea time, he would listen to her telling those timeless mythological stories. Chapter 1191, Are the Princess and the Dancer Doing Well with You? As the successor of the previous king of Undead, Elphilis had the responsibility to take care of the ancient weapons in the underground cemetery. They were also essential assistants in breaking Sia's world with Heaven's banishment. The previous king of Undead had developed ancient weapons such as the Black Iron Giant, Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, Opera House Phantom, and Rift Space Dragon, which were not originally intended for war. Their ultimate goal was the same. They wanted the wise beings of Sia's world to break through the barriers of the sky, establish a star bridge in this world, and make this world a part of the Endless Gods Domain civilization. For the Ten Leaves Alliance, this was also their most important mission. Each addition of a new God's Domain from a new civilization meant the recognition of more world rules, more rare resources, and a list of minerals. Any world that gave birth to civilization was a treasure that the Ten Leaves Alliance desired. Every civilization in the sky has its own unique features. Discovering these civilizations and making them part of the Endless Gods Domain, the Seven Tower System, has been the most important achievement and goal of the Ten Leaves Alliance since the Twilight War of the Gods. Sia's world's mission is one of the most challenging tasks in the known discovered civilizations. Compared to other civilizations that can be engaged in limited negotiations once discovered, the isolation of Sia's world is unparalleled. The people living in Sia's world may not know how strange the God's Domain, where Sia's world is located, is. Not only is it as simple as the Heaven's banishment, but the coordinates of the entire God's Domain where Sia's world is located are chaotic and change their position every once in a while. The planetary belt surrounding Sia's world not only cannot be accessed by conventional means, but even if one manages to enter, they will face immense rejection. The exploration missions launched by the Ten Leaves Alliance targeting Sia's world have a failure rate of 99%. The previous king of Undead is the only known individual who successfully entered Sia's world and returned with a message for the Ten Leaves Alliance. It took the Ten Leaves Alliance thousands of years or more, from the establishment of the incomplete Heaven's Tower by the king of Undead to the execution of the trial mission by Elphilis, to reach this place. It's not that the Ten Leaves Alliance didn't save the previous king of Undead. It's just that figuring out the ever-changing coordinates of Sia's world was too difficult. If it wasn't for the king of Undead sending out the message, the Ten Leaves Alliance might never have found the way in for thousands of years. Ancient weapons like the Black Iron Giant, Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, Opera House Phantom, and Rift Space Dragon represent all the emotions the previous king of Undead had for this world. Even if it turns into a bonfire, Elphilis was infected by this determination, making her determined to complete this trial. The Black Iron Giant is fine, but the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast might need some more time to repair. The seal of the Rift Space Dragon will soon be automatically released. Is this tower the miracle you want to accomplish? Yunshi's heart was accelerating, and he could only pretend to have a conversation to disguise his emotions. Pafu, who was inside the dragon gem on Yunshi's chest, had long been excited and jumping around. This unfamiliar world, so distant that it could be said to be separated by countless other worlds. Meeting the lady from the jewelry store, whom Yunshi once thought was the most suitable for marriage, made him feel a sense of destiny. Even though she was right in front of him, they couldn't recognize each other or speak about anything related to themselves. Even though it's not allowed, even though it's not right, the feelings that surged in their hearts couldn't be restrained. This won't do. Things are bound to go wrong if it continues like this. Yunshi knew better than anyone that this was not right, but he couldn't control the emotions welling up within him. Elphyllis, are you okay? Do you still remember Yunshi now? And what is your true identity? Yes, Silver Dragon, watch closely now. Soon, a bridge to the stars will be erected in this world. For this goal, Underground Cemetery has been preparing for millions of years. When all the ancient weapons of Underground Cemetery are completed, this Tower of Babel will become the biggest marvel in this world. Elphyllis raised her fingertips, pointing at the endless distant stars. There, it is a world of stars and ocean, cherished by the creatures of this world since the divine era began. Once the Tower of Babel is completed, a brand new era will dawn upon this world. Conquering the world is just a means to accomplish this goal. The time has come. As long as enough resources are gathered and the unfinished 5th and 6th ancient weapons of the Underground Cemetery are created, the miracle will happen. The world's greatest miracle is right in front of me, Elphyllis. Yunshi has never felt the bond between him and Elphyllis so clearly, transcending time and space. Even though burdened by curses from Asha, Ionia, the Nameless, and Naya, unable to use the power of the Star-Seed connection, Yunshi can still feel the invisible thread between him and Elphyllis. You possess great power. May Asha bless you, Elphyllis said with a smile, delivering the Northern God's domain-style congratulations that left Yunshi unsure whether to cry or laugh. Blessings from Asha. For me, they're like fatal curses, Elphyllis. Looking at his current 14-year-old body and the dragon jade on his chest, Yunshi began to regret his proactive choice of Asha's curse. Would it have been better to choose Ionia's curse? I have some dragon friends that I know in the Northern God's domain. You must have accidentally ended up in this world. Do you want me to help you find your way back? Elphyllis always cared about others. Thank you, but I don't plan on going back. Yunshi's forehead sweated heavily. Was he going to the Dragon God's domain in the north to fall into the trap of his ex-girlfriend, Dragon God Asha? Taking a path to certain death is not the way to go. If he were to find a place to hide, it would definitely be some remote God's domain in the Eastern God's domain. Wasn't he living happily in the White Lotus Sword domain for 16 years? If possible, the place he wanted to go the most was the legendary Kunlun God's domain. At least, there he had a good friend, the Golden Crow Princess. Additionally, the Empress She of the Kunlun God's domain was the only creator-level being who had never harmed him. You're starting your journey so young. You're truly an outstanding silver dragon. Elphyllis looked at Yunshi, who was even younger than herself, with a gentle expression. Somehow, this beautiful and lovely silver dragon was very endearing. Chapter 1192 Elphyllis, one of the strongest future inheritors of Endless God's domain, who represents the 4-leaf faction of 10 leaves, knows that there are different systems within the dragon clan. Descended directly from the ancient dragon god Asha, ruling over Northern God's domain, while also overseeing the void dragons who guard Endless God's domain and the unknown boundaries of the field. They're the most powerful dragons in all of Endless God's domain. Supreme Dragon God, hailed as the origin of the dragon clan, the Dragon of Order, is the most dominant personality among all known creator-level beings. The other creator-level beings have rarely appeared before the public, only Dragon Emperor Asha occasionally sending out their will incarnations. The dragons under her command are often aggressive, and the expansion of Endless God's domain and Northern God's domain after the Twilight of the Gods is the best proof. These young and spirited dragons fervently support the Dragon Clan's expansion plans, constantly venturing into the unknown territories of Endless God's domain, conquering the star domains of civilizations beneath them. If it weren't for the default principle of non-aggression among the creator existences, to avoid triggering another Twilight of the Gods, these ambitious dragons would have probably already started wars with other gods' domains. Meanwhile, over the long years, the Dragon Clan also gave rise to several different branches. Some of them, tired of war, still hold reverence for supreme dragon god Asha, but they no longer use war as a means to expand territories. Instead, they study the differences of various civilizations and grow through traveling across endless God's domain. Elphilis could clearly see that the small dragon in front of her, Silver Dragon Ash, belonged to the same group as the one behind her. This group, known as the minority faction of dragons in Northern God's domain, was one of the allies of the Ten Leaves Alliance. One of the creators of the Ten Leaves Alliance, a certain member who had never revealed their identity, was the mysterious dragon Elphilis had just encountered. Elphilis herself was chosen by the Ten Leaves as one of their agents. When she was young, she had personally visited the dragon god Asha's palace in Northern God's domain to attend a birthday party for Asha's daughter. This event, as recorded in the history of the Endless God's domain, was the last time many intelligent beings openly interacted with the will incarnations of creator-level beings. Afterwards, for unknown reasons, almost all creator-level beings fell into a strange silence, and no one could communicate with their will anymore. At this time, Elphilis was unaware that during her time in Sia's world undergoing trials, a major event had shocked all the gods in the Endless God's domain. The wills of 5, possibly 6, creator-level beings appeared in the White Lotusaur domain, where Huahua resided. Their immense power even caused the Star Bridge to come to a halt. The closed environment of Sia's world, detached from the rest of the Endless God's domain civilization, caused Elphilis to miss this significant event that had already been written into the history of the Endless God's domain. The person who had brought together the silent creator-level beings was standing right in front of her, looking at her with a nervous but compelling gaze. "Is there anything I can help you with, Elphilis?" After discovering that the owner of the underground cemetery is the king of undead, who is also his childhood friend, Yunshi suddenly feels guilty. He personally defeated the Black Iron Giant and the Emerald Sea Dragon Beast, and took the soul cores of these two ancient weapons. Until he walked through the door and saw the true face of the King of Undead, he was prepared for anything. If the communication goes smoothly, and he can obtain the Constellation God's weapons and the goodwill of the other party, it would be the best. If this is a trap and the other party has ulterior motives, he and the Faceless God must use absolute power to defeat or even kill the King of Undead in the underground cemetery. Who would have imagined that the owner of the underground cemetery under the black armor would actually be the young lady of this jewelry store? "Aren't you afraid of me?" Since a while ago, Elphilis has noticed that the gaze of the young boy before her is somewhat ambiguous. She has seen that kind of gaze in many young boys' eyes before, and she rejected all of them. The reason is simple: you came too late. If at this moment, the tiny silver dragon were to confess his love to her without caring about anything else, she would probably say, "You are a good child, but still too young. Wait until you grow up and understand what true love is. Then I will reconsider." Of course, there is no need to reconsider as her heart is already filled with the image of someone else. She doesn't think about anyone other than him. The world is so big, but her heart is small. It can't contain anyone other than the person she loves. Why be afraid? You are so beautiful and charming. Yunshi wouldn't confess his love to Elphilis. He doesn't need to do such a thing himself. Because that night, Elphilis had already confessed her love to him. Unfortunately, he had already fallen for someone else and had been bound by the disguise of being a great sword made to Huahua, his childhood friend. He had to leave the town where he lived together with Huahua. Even if he hadn't been caught by Huahua, he was planning to leave the town and wander the world. At that time, he didn't realize yet how terrifying it was to have 4 ex-girlfriends who were creator level. He just instinctively felt that he needed to get further away. Elphilis liked him, and the boss of the jewelry store had hinted more than once that he could marry into the store. Well, to tell the truth, Yunshi really felt a spark. He had long understood that he wasn't worthy of Huahua. It was reality, not a fairy tale. Compared to Huahua, the gentle and lovely Elphilis, who was considered the most suitable bride for the jewelry store's young miss, was obviously a better choice. Well then, let's celebrate the fulfillment of our covenant. Elphyllis smiled faintly and somehow produced a complete tea set from somewhere, brewing some black tea. Ah, in that case, I have bread here. Yuanxi also took out his prized possession, a limited edition collection of 100 breads. Ah, this cream bread is a rare treasure of the fourth rank, right? Elphyllis wasn't an ordinary mortal who had no idea about Sia's world. At the first glance of Yuanxi's golden cream bread, she knew it was a highly refined magical food. The food at this level has incredible magic in itself. It can replenish the strength and magic of heroes, and it's not something that can be bought with money. No matter which organization, this is a true strategic resource, the universal hard currency of the entire Endless Gods domain. In the entire 10 Leaves Alliance, heroes who can create magic food of this level are highly sought-after rare talents. Chapter 1193 Yes, it's a treasure I've collected. Constellation God's weapons are important to me, as well as Queen Ayn of the Sia Kingdom and Princess Adley. I hope you can take care of them more in the future, Yuanxi said sincerely while looking at Elphyllis. If it's her, Yuanxi will trust her unconditionally. Whether it's her, Miley Ai, Yi Li, or Hua Hua, they are all irreplaceable childhood friends to Yuanxi. Do you really trust me like that? We were enemies not long ago. Elphyllis was a little confused. She could tell that the sacred silver dragon in front of her was a bit infatuated with her, but she didn't understand this unwavering trust. Did she get dazzled by the sudden arrival of love? The fourth grade food is not just some regular cabbage. As the heir of the 10 Leaves Alliance, she only brought a small box of this grade of magic teddy bear cookies to this remote Sia's world. There was no other way. Compared to other special supplies that needed to be sent over first, this small box of magic teddy bear cookies was what she managed to get by sacrificing some jewelry to contribute to the construction of the temporary star bridge. These cookies, which can replenish magic and vitality when necessary, are the favorite supplies of all hero-ranked strong individuals in the 10 Leaves Alliance. No exceptions. The pastry chef who can make these magical cookies is a treasure of the entire 10 Leaves Alliance and is not allowed to participate in any dangerous missions. These teddy bear cookies, with a shelf life of over 100 years, can be exchanged for more than 10 times the amount of gold in any god's domain. They are always valuable and cannot be bought. After all, it is extremely rare for someone to choose a life occupation as a genius on the path to becoming a hero-ranked individual. And a life occupation that can produce excellent magical food is even rarer among the rare. When Elphyllis glanced at the golden cream bread Yuanxi took out, which seemed to still emit the heat of just being baked, she conscientiously put away the compressed teddy bear cookies she had prepared to serve. The difference between the two sides was clear at a glance. As for whether Yuanxi is the hero-ranked bread artisan, Elphyllis had never heard of dragons advancing in life occupations. How could a powerful dragon have a hobby of baking bread? Any hero-ranked advancement follows certain rules, regardless of which god's domain it is. Some people are naturally gifted with nimble hands and can choose from various hero-ranked advancements. The future god weapon could be a sword or a gun, but definitely not kitchen utensils. Similarly, those who excel in painting and immerse themselves in the field of art cannot choose berserker as their occupation. Artists are often eccentric individuals, and those who love their livelihood usually don't enjoy wielding swords and knives. Therefore, Elphyllis didn't even think about what kind of bread Yuanxi just baked. Yuanxi produced the bread out of thin air, which might seem unbelievable to others, but Elphyllis herself also possesses this ability. The heir of the 10 Leaves Alliance participating in the trial naturally wouldn't come unprepared. They made all the necessary preparations before starting this trial. What a coincidence it's bread. Elphyllis calmly upgraded the quality of her own black tea, smelling the fragrant aroma permeating the air. Although not as strategic as magical food supplies, this red tea, which enhances meditation efficiency, is considered a treasure worth more than 10 times its weight in gold in the Western God's domain for mage God's domains. By the way, when she was having afternoon tea with someone at a bakery in a small town, she always drank this. Such a nice smell. Yuanxi smelled the familiar tea aroma. It was a red tea that he searched the whole town for, but couldn't find. He didn't know where it was produced, but every time he drank it, it made him feel happy. Everything seemed to be back to how it was before. It was a leisurely afternoon sunshine, just him and Phyllis, enjoying a purple Roland-scented tea date. Even though it was only a few months ago, it felt like a long time had passed. When Yunshi had tea with Phyllis again, it felt like a different world. Maybe, in a way, it really was a different world. When he got caught by his 4 ex-girlfriends and had to split his soul and part of his body to escape, Yunshi truly smelled the scent of death. It wasn't the death he experienced hundreds or thousands of times in trials, but a real catastrophe that no one in the entire endless God's domain could save him from. Now looking back, it was really a miracle to escape alive. Next time, there won't be such luck. Those 4 creator-level ex-girlfriends will never make the same mistake twice. Oh, this taste. After taking the first bite of Yunshi's bread, Phyllis knew where the fragrance she smelled in Sia Royal City streets came from. The sweetness that seemed to melt the tongue, with a light bite and a roll, gave a satisfying sensation to the soul. This taste, as if carved into her memory, so familiar, so sweet. No, something's not right. Reluctant to admit it, but this taste is indeed more perfect, more intoxicating than in her memory. Where did this bread come from? Phyllis widened her eyes, with an expression of disbelief. She never imagined that in this remote and isolated Sias world, she would be able to taste such high-quality bread. Moreover, what was even more important was that this bread gave her a feeling that was familiar deep in her bones. Yunshi himself would not know what his handmade bread represented to his childhood sweetheart. From Hua to Phyllis, Miley, and Yili, everyone was accustomed to eating his bread since they were young, and they knew its taste even better than he did. If it wasn't for this time when she made an advanced hero-ranked cream golden bread, Phyllis would have already grabbed him and yelled, "It's you, little she!" Seeing Phyllis's bewildered expression, Yunshi finally realized that he had let slip a big secret. There was no way around it. Giving his best-made bread to his childhood sweetheart had become an almost instinctive habit for him. Luckily, Phyllis had never tried the bread he made after advancing. It was still the special version of golden cream bread he perfected by modifying the recipe. After the special limited bread storage bonus for hero-ranked bakers, the quality of these breads had already surpassed the sky, and Phyllis's astonishment was the best proof. When she was forced to leave Little She in the past, she was angry and sent her subordinates from the 10 Leaves Alliance to cause trouble for Hua once. And that's how this inheritance trial started. Due to achieving high scores in the previous trial task of guarding the most ferocious monster in the endless God's domain, this time her trial difficulty was much lower than the first round. The King of Undead from before had already made the first move in Sia's world and continued to invest a lot of resources. All she had to do was make good use of these resources, along with the key components she brought with the space equipment, to completely build the Tower of Babel. The previous King of Undead was involved in strategic construction tasks, while her task was to complete the already built framework of the Tower of Babel. How many crystals can I exchange for this type of bread? Phyllis changed her wording, no longer pursuing the source of the bread, but simply wanting to buy some of these strategic resources. Crystals are not the currency of Sia's world or White Lotus or domain, but a universal exchange item used in Endless God's domain, which is useful from the higher field, hero-ranked, and even to the legend-ranked. Endless God's domain is home to countless intelligent beings, mortals, heroes, and even gods, who have established nations like countless stars in the sky, using a variety of currencies. Before the Star Bridge was built, the currencies of each god's domain were completely incompatible. After all, the civilization systems were different. How could they use the same thing as currency? Gems, gold, stones, salt, livestock. Each civilization system has traditional things used as currency, so completing transactions becomes a big problem. Crystals represent the currency system of the 10 Leaves Alliance and the fairies. Ijing is a leaf from a golden tree planted by the golden fairies who created this system. It's about the size of a normal camphor tree leaf, very light in weight, and has a crystal-like appearance. It is the common currency used by hero-ranked individuals for trading. Because these golden leaves contain a slight magical aura that can be used by almost all living creatures, they gradually became an accepted equivalent currency in the Endless Gods domain. The golden leaves cultivated by the golden fairies are limited in quantity, and they are essential materials for many magical foods and alchemy. They are always in short supply and are the most widely used exchange item in the entire Endless Gods domain. The monetary system used by the ruling classes within the various countries of the Endless Gods domain to exploit the labor of the people is not recognized in transactions. Instead, a currency system that must have tangible and intrinsic value is used. Crystals are the most commonly used trading items in hero-ranked transactions, while some in the Gods domain use a less popular currency called souls. Some parts of the Gods domain don't accept any currency at all and can only rely on bartering, remaining in a very primitive stage. However, in trades between individuals at the legend rank, there exists an absolutely unified currency that is used throughout the entire Endless Gods domain, regardless of whether it is in the north, south, east, or west. This currency, called leaves, was only created in the later stages of the twilight of the gods. It is actually a leaf from the world tree, possessing the miraculous power of star crystals. This is a treasure that even gods cannot refuse. Each leaf of the world tree is a rare and precious item that allows the holder to exchange it for anything they need. This is because at the legend ranked, there is no longer any need for most worldly possessions. Only treasures like the leaves of the world tree are worthy of catching the attention of those at the legend ranked. They have been determined as the highest level currency equivalent in the Endless Gods domain. The leaves of the golden tree, nurtured by the golden fairies, are actually based on the concept of the world tree's leaves. They have been recognized by most countries and civilizations in the Endless Gods domain. Completing the leaf system is considered one of the greatest achievements in the history of the 10 Leaves Alliance. This currency, created by an undisclosed founder of the 10 Leaves Alliance, can be seen as one of the cornerstones of the entire civilization in the Endless Gods domain. Chapter 1195, How About 100 Crystals? Elphilis offered, seeing Yuan-Shi's bewildered expression. As naturally perfect catalysts for magic, the golden tree leaves have an astonishing purchasing power of 1 crystal. Being the only universally recognized currency system at the hero rank, other currencies can't even compare to it. In a world like Sia's world, where the star bridge is not connected yet, a cluster of crystal leaves like this can be used as the rarest alchemy material. In this world's divine era, you can even buy a god weapon. However, the value of money depends on what you're trading for. There are some things that you can't buy no matter how much money you have. The 4th grade golden cream bread that Yuan-Shi brought out is considered a valuable strategic resource in this world. 10 times the amount of gold is just a way of describing it. Once the owner doesn't sell, even if you have a gold mine, it wouldn't help at all. A world where money can buy everything only exists in civilizations that have never been seen before with extraordinary powers. Following the occasional magical food trading records of her organization, Elphilis set a rough price for Yuan-Shi's golden cream bread, 100 crystals. This price can buy a house with a garden in the best location of the busiest city, Western Gods domain, in Endless Gods domain. It's a lifelong dream for many people in Endless Gods domain, and 99% of them will never be able to fulfill this dream. In the past trades of god weapons that had lost their owners in Endless Gods domain, the lowest known price was around 10,000 crystals. This means that this piece of golden cream bread is worth 1% of that god weapon. Even though it lost its owner and cannot be inherited, the god weapon is still an excellent weapon, a treasure among mortal beings. There's no doubt that magical food, which can save a hero-ranked strong person's life at a critical moment, is extremely rare and uncommon. Once they reach the hero-ranked level, ordinary herbs, injections, and such lose their effectiveness. It is a natural result of the evolution of the essence of hero-ranked life. Among naturally grown medicinal herbs, only those that have accumulated hundreds or even thousands of years can heal the injuries of hero-ranked individuals and restore their strength. Not to mention the injuries caused by various extraordinary powers, and even the damage caused by god weapons, can only be treated with the same kind of extraordinary power. In the Western God's domain, there is a special profession called priest, which specializes in healing and assisting divine arts. However, obtaining this profession requires a strong belief and an affinity for the light element. It is a profession unique to the church, and most people don't leave the church. In comparison, the advantage of magical food is more apparent, as the rare priests are mostly in the church, while magical food can be carried around as a life-saving item. However, the problem is that there are even fewer professions that can produce magical food than the priest profession. To become a priest, one needs devout faith and an affinity for the light element, while being able to create magical food requires an immense passion for one's profession, along with extraordinary talent in sensing. A hero-rank strong person who becomes a combat profession will be greatly respected by many people. On the other hand, a hero-rank person who chooses a profession for daily life, although also respected, has the weakest combat ability among all hero-ranked individuals. Everyone wants to have a profession for daily life to assist themselves, but no one wants to be in a profession that supports others. Therefore, the scarcity of these professions is completely understandable. In the mortal world, the power of the country can brainwash many people and make them accept their fate of having a profession for daily life. However, to achieve a hero-rank profession for daily life, one needs to have a genuine love and be fully immersed in it. This is not something that can be interfered with by any country's orders. In any era, a hero-rank profession for daily life is as rare as a giant panda. Even powerful organizations like the 10 Leaves Alliance, which has influence all over the endless gods domain, have very few hero-rank professionals in these professions. Among them, the individual who can create perfect magical food as a profession for daily life. Even Phyllis doesn't know who that person is. She only knows that they are the most well-protected person in the entire 10 Leaves Alliance. In all honesty, without magical bear cookies, the combat strength of the entire 10 Leaves Alliance would decrease by half. A person who can continuously create magical food, whether they are a bread maker, a dessert maker, or any other profession, is a precious talent that all organizations in the endless gods domain would envy and refuse to give up until they obtain them. 100 crystals. Yunshi had never used this hero-rank currency that is widely accepted in the endless gods domain. In the White Lotus Sword domain, this kind of currency is not commonly used, except near the Sky Tower where it is used for settling large amounts of goods. It was only through the library at the White Lotus Sword Palace that Yunshi found out about the existence of this currency. The smallest denomination is 1 crystal, and in a small town, no store can give change for that amount. Becoming a hero-rank baker was a natural progression for Yunshi. His main profession was already a baker, and his goal was to work in this career for his whole life. Only Hydra the water god, Cassina the battle god, White Lotus, and the Red Lotus twins knew about his profession, so they didn't envy his special career. Yunshi himself didn't realize how rare his hero-ranked baker profession was. In the entire White Lotus Sword domain, there were no recipes that he couldn't handle. Just thinking about it, a profession that can make food that even the Golden Crow Princess from Kunlun God's domain enjoys must be extraordinary, not ordinary. So, 120 crystals? Phyllis smiled slightly as she noticed Yunshi's hesitation. It's good to hesitate, as hesitation means there is a possibility of a transaction. If someone has an indifferent expression and doesn't care, it means that no amount of crystals can buy this type of magical food that they have never seen before. A premium of 20% can buy this golden creamy bread that tastes familiar without any loss. Even without considering the emotional bonus, buying at 120 crystals, she is confident to sell for twice that value. Magic Bear cookies are the highest quality magic food that Phyllis can obtain, and they are precious strategic reserves for the entire 10 Leaves Alliance. Having an additional reserve of magic food is a good thing for the entire 10 Leaves Alliance. It would be even better if a stable and large supply could be formed. The 10 Leaves Alliance is desperate for any life profession that can produce magic food. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.